Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. We're at the very beginning of the semester. Last week was really our first lesson. Today is level 1, lesson 2, and it's actually such an extensive lesson because there's actually 4 parts when you do the homework that I might split this into 2 weeks. So we're going to see how far we can get before your brains liquefy and you need a break. And don't worry, if it becomes overwhelming, then I'll just say, we'll save some of this for later. Because basically, the information that starting at the beginning here, when I wrote this curriculum, I did it all very intentionally, beginning with the most important information. That's why lesson 1 and lesson 2 are super dense, super jam-packed. I really hope that you access the recorded whiteboards that I have. They're now on a Vimeo showcase and they are password protected. So you can just contact me to be able to get access to those materials because of course I'm going to go through it here in the live lecture, but I think that the way that I did it in the original recorded lessons is extremely detailed and extremely worth it. It's like mastering the foundation concepts of math or of something like music formalism. If you can master those and develop a comfort and a facility with these concepts, then you can apply it to anything. Because today, what we are talking about is this shape. So you can see I'm not working with my little yellow sculpture because that one's kind of broken. It's kind of whatever, done. And this one doesn't show up that well on the screen because it looks kind of like the same color as my outfit, but it's a lot less distracting. So this is the primary shape that we're going to be working with here and learning about and mastering different aspects of this. One is, how is this shape formed? Like, this is, first of all, a dynamic shape. It's not static, although I'm holding up a static, sculpture in order to show you, but it has movement to it. The movement is a type of language. What I'm really teaching you are the foundational building blocks of the higher dimensional language of harmonics. When I recorded the lessons, I didn't even know I needed to call it harmonics. I called it the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. And when I say tone, what I mean is like a musical tone, like la 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 la. And texture. When you wonder about that, you're like, what are you talking about? Light can have various different types of textures. Like light can be hard, light can be soft, light can be fuzzy, light can be bouncy. The abstract energy that I'm talking about can have different qualities, and texture is one of them. And this is what you're going to start to perceive as you awaken and master your light body, and as your higher senses become prevalent and you begin to comprehend how to tune into them. All right. So we're going to also talk about this as it's time object. And pardon me, because there's also lots of flies in here. I had the door open, and so if you see me waving around, that's what I'm doing. Time object. So this shape represents possibilities and probabilities. And for newcomers, I introduced you to that concept in our class last week. The bottom quadrant here, how I draw it as a time vortex, and with the comprehension that you have a central core timeline that is not represented in this sculpture, but that's a really important feature. That is the path of least likelihood, and it is all of our goals. I'm going to break for a moment in order to say Cheeky is here. Cheeky is actually not enjoying the heat. We're having 100 degrees right now, Fahrenheit, and she's not enjoying it that much. And she was, I think, a little bit grumpy because of it. So Princess Cheeky has a bed right in front of the air conditioner, and she's on a fluffy white bed with the fan blowing on her. And she just came out here to try to, like add some positive energy. So we needed some uplift. Okay, but back to being serious. Today, we're going to talk about this as a time apparatus or formfulness. We're going to talk a lot about this central feature here, the convergence point, which is the singularity, but not the transhumanist singularity. It is the singularity, the place in our world where all the laws of physics break down. That's a fun thing to talk about. Let's talk about the place of complete novelty. And we're also going to talk about this as an analog for forms that exist in the physical world, in nature, that you can see with your 5 senses. Things like Earth's magnetosphere or a dipole magnet, or the energy field known as a solenoid, which is something that I've got it's in lesson, I think 2.4, an aspect of the interrelationship of electricity and magnetism. And all of this, grab my other sculpture over here, is again foundational truth so that you can get comfortable with these concepts so that you can then begin to apply them to the flying rainbow lasagna. So today what we're going to do is to begin to comprehend how this shape transforms into this shape through the activity known as the flying rainbow lasagna and why that is important. But first, before we go into the complex hyperdimensional torus shape, let's master what the torus shape is all about. And in today's class, I'm also going to talk a lot about your DNA and supercoiling because your DNA has a direct connection to this shape and also, of course, then to this shape. In fact, the flying rainbow lasagna is a dance that you do with your DNA, and your DNA is connected to time. And so what you're doing is dancing with events, and you're dancing with probability fields and likelihoods and creating new likelihoods. And what is happening on a genetic level is both an expression of truths or potentials in time, but is also affecting the form of potentials in time or events in time. And as I was sitting outside today and drinking my coffee in the morning, kind of preparing for class and going over my notes, I hope that I can articulate this because I always like to keep class relevant and not simply to repeat what I have said in previous semesters. So before I dive into the curriculum from that you might be familiar with, and that might be repeat or whatever, something that you already know for people who have been in my class already, let's talk about things that I don't always talk about, which is something about like, I do have a class that's all about the sun and interdimensional ethics. I think it's lesson 13, but I want to talk about like the ethics of flying rainbow lasagna, because this has to do with your self-sovereignty, what you are doing with your own body, what you do with your own energy field and your own DNA, and also the recognition that all of our DNA is interconnected and has an impact on one another. So although you are a unique individual, you have your own body, you have your own epidermis, you have your own energy field that represents you. Like everything from epidermis inward is me, right? But then the stuff that's not you. But the stuff that is not inside of your epidermis still does represent something that you're having a conversation with. You must mute yourself when you come into the meetings because it's very distracting to me when I have to mute you. Please keep in mind that. Thank you very much, everyone. The things that aren't you and how much they have an impact upon you. And so this has to do with like rules of the universe or rules of the cosmic infrastructure of what are you allowed to do with yourself and how much are you allowed to have an impact on other people and all of these things. It's for the human mind and the human viewpoint, it is an ethical puzzle. Like, how do I be a good person in the world? How much of stuff can I do that's convenient for me without like, trampling on top of other people? But in the highest level of your pure insight, on the level of pure mathematical abstraction, it all becomes very, very clear in terms of what is advisable or what is celebrated and what is totally not allowed, totally not advisable, totally not tolerated in any way. And this is not because of wishy-washy human ethical whims, but because of just the very simple sense of, does something work? Does it support the system? Does something that you're doing support the fabric of space-time, or does it destroy the fabric of space-time, make everybody go bye-bye? All right, that's kind of more of what's going on here. So let me say, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a unique song or a unique emission from my DNA that I have invented. And it's totally within my right as cosmic presence to dance DNA in a new and exciting pattern. This is part of the foundational red chakra. We went through the chakras last week in class. The I am presence. Chakra red says, I exist. I'm allowed to exist. But then, of course, there are all the other layers on top of there that mitigate that basic drive for survival and right to exist that help you to learn how to exist in community. So this is important stuff because as I am here and I'm flying rainbow lasagna-ing, I am sending out frequency or a type of song that I know is emanating outward and having an impact on the world around me. That's within my right. That's like saying, you come here in the world and you have thoughts. You know, you have thoughts. You're allowed to have thoughts and you are allowed to send them out and have an impact on the people around you. Like maybe you might write a book. You're allowed to write a book. Sing a song. You're allowed to do that. Dance, paint a painting, wait, mix whatever, formally decorate a cake, whatever it is, as a form of communication. And that is within your right. But of course, you're not allowed to like forcibly make someone eat your cake. They should choose to do it. But you can present it to them. But I also know, like, if I'm making my cake in my house, the neighbor's gonna smell it and be like, oh, that smells interesting, or that smells positive, or I hate that smell. But you recognize that, but it's still within my right to be making these flying rainbow lasagna reality cakes and have that emanate outward. And what I do is I offer these patterns to others, but as a way of making something that is innovative available to you so that you can then internalize it with your own DNA and translate it into a language that is comfortable for your unique body presence and your unique journey through time. So none of this is about taking a carbon copy. Nobody knows what carbon paper is anymore. Wait, some of my wonderful students do. You're like, oh wait, I remember Aurora. I know carbon copy or whatever, exact replica, and imposing it upon you. And I hope you can also tell from my philosophy and from my persona that I encourage your individuality. I actually do not want everyone in the world to look exactly like me or make artwork exactly like me or make music exactly like me or do anything exactly like me. The essence of Flying Rainbow Lasagna is that I want each one of you to take these concepts that I have innovated, that have allowed me to do wonderful body restructuring, wonderful divine reconnection, reconnecting to the sun, the stars, divine consciousness, and also what you would call the morphic or morphogenic field. Let's call it the field of pure potential that represents factory settings or the ideal state of health and vitality of what your body can achieve. So whatever, maybe you're 5'5", or maybe you're 6'10". Like I am not either of those heights. I am somewhere in between there. So if anything that I'm doing for me fits for me, like my dress fits for me, but if you are 5'5", you will have to alter it for you, tailor it, customize it. Same thing if you're 6'10". Your bodies are different. Each one of you has unique bodies, and each one of you, your DNA is unique, and it's as unique as your fingerprint. And this is not only your DNA, but we're talking about your soul, like the journey of your consciousness, who you've been across time, your personality characteristics, and the flavor of who you are, or something like that. Sorry, and also, let me turn this off, but sorry, I just got this notification because we've been having internet outages in my area, and there was some power problems and also a fire nearby, but not here. Don't worry, we're safe. So I've actually sent out an email, and I hope that we'll have a stable internet connection for me to be able to do class effectively today. But don't worry, in case there's any problems, I'll switch to my phone, or if we get cut off, I'll just resume next week. So don't worry, guys, but it's a crazy day over here. So I hope you even got, emails bounced back. I wasn't even sure if I could get emails to be sent out properly, but I did see them doing work on the power lines. But each one of you has a unique body, a unique soul, a unique set of characteristics, a unique flavor of who you are. That's like your soul signature and your unique characteristics. You also have a unique curriculum of what you need to learn in life as a soul. Like some of you have mastered some things, you're doing great. Other things you need work on. And people don't have, it's not a uniform set of life lessons. So just like when you go to the gym, some people are like really strong with their arms, but they got to work on their legs, or some people are great with their strength, but they got to work on their flexibility. Like it's not a 100% one size fits all system that you can simply apply to everyone and say, do it like this. In fact, that's very simplistic, and that doesn't really work in most things. Like there's not 100% nutrition, like this is the diet for you, or this is the exercise plan for you, or this is this, which is why I kind of don't really like some formalized systems. Like I know yoga can be helpful and wonderful to some people, but like not all of those poses and body postures work for everyone, and they don't, a lot of them don't work for me. So I'm very selective about the things that I eat and how I individualize my approach to my body health, and also how I approach my self-construction and constructing of time events in my life. And I'm encouraging each one of you to also be 100% in control of your own life expression and your individuality as an artist. Like you're a masterpiece. Even if you don't think of yourself as a creative artist, your life is a masterpiece, and you must be true to your own artistic vision and expression of that. So what does that look like? It means like if I have figured out a way to move my DNA in order to be able to do cool and fun things, you have different equipment. You might have to move it differently to achieve a similar effect. You might have to develop different patterns or in some way change it so that it fits with you. So another good example of this is like if you enjoy the fine art of karaoke, which is, or covering another person's song, right? Like you're going to sing a song that you like that someone else wrote. And if you do that, sometimes like their voice can do things your voice cannot do. You don't have to just try to imitate someone else's voice or expression. You could be like, well, that guy could hit that note, but I cannot hit that note. Like whatever, Freddie Mercury, some amazing operatic singer. You'd be like, you know something? Take it down an octave or change or modify it so that it sounds good with your voice and with what your vocal equipment is. So this is what I'm encouraging you to do, to consider that Flying Rainbow Lasagna is my individual artistic expression that is protected under the sense of being a cosmic right, like one of my basic rights to existence, and that I offer it as a gift, as an inspiration of like mentorship to other people, and to be like, hey, like I do it like this. You can do something similar, but that I never am offering access to my actual body. I am not saying, hey, like, you know something, would you like to cut off a piece of my arm and ingest it and then you'll become lasagna? No. No. Yeah, it's kind of like this. And also, what right do I have as a supernatural being floating through the world to be accessed? And the answer is only through consent. Like imagine if you are a magical unicorn, right? And you're running, galloping through the world. Like, do other people have an innate right to like get your unicorn tears? It's like, no, those are your tears, and you can give your unicorn tears to whomever you want because they're supposed to be like mythologically healing. Or how about your horn? Like, can anyone come along and just chop off your horn and take it, grind it up into some kind of whatever strange white powder, and then snort it out of disco? No. The answer is no. No one has a right to do that. And so no one has an innate right to be able to take body substances, cell cultures, frequencies, anything from me, reproductive, whatever, eggs, anything like that, and be like, because Aurora's Flying Rainbow Lasagna, she's offering open source code. I'm like, no. That is not what this is at all. So that is a very, very grotesque distortion of who I am. And that is a very, very great disrespect to boundaries. Of course, the good people in my class, I am not concerned about any of you and don't have to make this distinction for you. I haven't felt any transgressions in terms of my boundaries from you, but I have faced a lot in this world of very evil forces that have been like, oh, magical unicorn. Let's grind up that unicorn horn and turn it into some kind of a whatever, drug of abuse. And of course, like I do not consent to any of that. So really, really important to make that distinction. So I offer the concept of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as an augmentation or an upgrade for what you can do with your DNA, but I also teach you good value system.
So it's like saying, I want to give you a paintbrush. Like, I imagine the first guy that ever invented a paintbrush. Like, everyone else was finger painting, and then some guy invented a paintbrush, and he's like, hey, look, like, I did this thing, and you can do a thing with it. And you can inspire other people and be like, hey, here, do a thing. You can make a paintbrush too. So first of all, I'm not like giving you my paintbrush. I'm like, here, I made one. I'll show you how to make one, but you have to make your own. And then also, I can show you how I paint with a paintbrush, but I'm not going to tell you what your subject matter should be. Like if you want to paint flowers or fruits or trees or pandas or whatever it is, paint it because that's important to you. I paint these rainbow abstractions because that is what's important to me. So with Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you are painting reality. You are creating in time. And that's why it's so important for you to master these foundation concepts so that you're calibrated correctly and that you can actually like make things that sound good in time. But I also want to give you beyond harmonic accuracies, the value system of like, what should you create? Like, what is good stuff to create? Like, what things are life affirming? What things are corrosive? What things do we need more of in the world? What things do we need less of in the world? Because a big part of Flying Rainbow Lasagna is it is like a pencil with an eraser, an exacerbation or turning up the volume on the things internally in your body that are awesome. Some DNA, you want to be louder. And you're like, ah, hooray, I like that. I like the loud, healthy DNA songs. But then some things in the DNA, you want to turn that down. Like, that doesn't sound good. That's not a good one. Definitely turn down that one. So mostly things that cause disease in your body. And want to be able to erase or send to entropy either disease characteristics or personality characteristics that are non-life affirming, again, corrosive or antithetical to the entirety of the fabric of space-time having good longevity. And so when you think of those terms, like you're expanding your vision and your responsibility, it's not just about like whether you do things that are good for you in your body or your life. You have to be like, well, what if I did this to the 10th degree? What if I did this to the millionth degree? What if everybody did this to the 10 millionth degree? How would the world look? Because some characteristics are good, they're fine in small amounts, but then they're not okay if you do them too much. And then they're definitely not okay if everybody does them. So think about, any kind of thing, balances of nature. You have like, you can fish. You can get like one fish, that's fine. You get a couple of fish, that's fine. If you get a giant net and you trawl the entire ocean and you get every fish, that is out of balance because then you have no more fish. And there are some things that if people amplify them too much in their body, then it's like that puts things out of balance. So what I want to give you is remind you of your freedom because I don't give you your freedom, but I also really want to remind you of your the value system that I'm trying to give you, your commitment or what you owe to your environment and the other people around you, not only to yourself. And again, this is not directed primarily towards the people in this class because you are all like the best people, that you have innate generosity and restraint and a sense of decorum and a sense of trying to do what is right. But please be aware, like I wouldn't want people to take this paintbrush of reality and use it to paint a lot of things that are either out of balance or extremely negative. But I can already hear somebody's question, so I won't make you wait all semester so I can answer your question. The answer is, what if a person who's super duper evil, whatever, Dr. Evil, gets a hold of the lasagna? He's like, hooray, I finally got the thing and I'll make more evil out of it. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is kind of like the Swamp Thing formula from comic books. I know I get very silly sometimes, but in that comic book, he made a formula, and when he drank it, he just became more himself. So Swamp Thing was a botanist, and he became a plant because he loved plants so much. But when other people got the magic formula and they took it, they didn't become Swamp Thing. They become like horrible, grotesquely distorted creatures that represent their truest nature. But I don't want to make more monsters. I really want you to know that. And when I created Flying Rainbow Lasagna, in a higher dimensional moment of pure inspiration, I put a lot of safeguards into it. So if someone who is profoundly evil
accesses the lasagna or is even quantum entangled with or interactive with someone who is doing the lasagna, they don't all of a sudden get a lot of energy. I want you to know this. The flying rainbow lasagna is not just like a free energy device that get like, imagine an engine, a steam engine, or a nuclear power plant or something like that, where it's like, hooray, energy, and you can use the energy for good or you can use the energy for evil. No, it is not that. Although mastering the flying rainbow lasagna does give you access to an infinite amount of energy, it's not just a type of thing where you can then be this giant energy source and then all these evil things can come along and be like, great, like now I'll rob your energy banks so that way I can be rich or I can, whatever, exploit. It's not to be exploited in that way. So the essence of flying rainbow lasagna is that it is made out of perfect math and truth. And when something that's evil and out of balance, which is basically it's doing bad math, and it has a lot of mistakes in it, interacts with the lasagna, it is made aware of its mistakes. Much like the swamp thing syrup, it becomes more itself. It becomes more aware of its wrongness, its mathematical imperfection, its imbalance, and the fact that it can't actually exist in that form. So if something was like 99% evil and it interacted with the flying rainbow lasagna, it would get a lot of information. And the information would be like, here's all of the bad math that's in your system. And then at the end, it would be like, P.S., you can't exist because your math is so wrong. And then it would get the person who's experiencing this or creature who's experiencing this would be like, huh, look at that. I guess I can't exist. And it would go into a state of non-existence. The interactivity with flying rainbow lasagna would bring it more towards the essence of truth, which is that it is an unstable system that cannot continue to exist in reality, as some creatures are on a journey towards energy and some creatures are on a journey towards entropy. Creatures or consciousnesses or organisms, even organizations, because some of this would be like, sorry, those flies, a space race, civilization, a group, a hive mind or whatever. Sometimes it's one thing, sometimes it's an organization. And let's say an evil hive mind is very poorly structured, and you're doing your flying rainbow lasagna, and you're super awesome, and you're totally structured just by it seeing you. It's not like, oh, look, I'm hacking your system, and I'm going to learn all about lasagna, and I'm going to steal it from you, kind of like whatever, some kind of like industrial espionage, where they're like, I'm going to hack your system, get your software codes or whatever. I'm going to make a dress like your dress, and then I will make a cheap knockoff over here. No, what happens is even by just looking at you while you're doing the flying rainbow lasagna, these malformed creatures or consciousnesses are transformed by that truth. They receive information, and the information is not just exploitable information. It is information that reflects upon them, that basically tells them, this person over here is doing flying rainbow lasagna and they are accelerating and they are moving towards longevity and coherence and continued existence. But you are something that's not supposed to exist. And you are the stuff that is supposed to go into non-existence, to get less energized and to be less in existence. And then eventually or suddenly to be fully out of existence in a state of restful entropy. So these are really, really important concepts to know. You, myself, or anyone who is flying rainbow lasagna, or anyone who's doing it or experiencing it or a part of it, is not here to be exploited or have your energy yoinked away as you're generating it. And that the, exploitive consciousness is, so that would be like lazy, self-centered, evil, malevolent, psychopathic type of consciousnesses that want to do something like that. Let's say that they're spying on you when you lasagna and they see you. They're just going to figure out that they are going to go to entropy. When they see you lasagna, they just get the idea that they need to go to entropy. So I hope that my words have been able to articulate this effectively enough. And I'll continue to emphasize these concepts throughout the rest of our semester. It's really going to be relevant when we're talking about things that involve DNA and also RNA, and also those things that I sometimes hold up
like that kind of thing. That's on that piece of paper there. I got my piece of paper going today, so that way I can talk about it on this particular platform, and reach more people. Wait, let me just hydrate, and then we're going to jump into the curriculum. Hold on, because also I have some wonderful imagery I want to share with each one of you of what supercoiling is, what it looks like. I want to help to educate you about what DNA is, because lots of people talk about RNA, and then they talk about all these different things. They talk about DNA, and nobody really knows what it is. And also, even scientists in this world, I'm sorry to tell you, like, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't really know what the F they're doing, and they are messing things up a lot. So because they don't even know and comprehend that DNA is connected to time. So let's begin with that. DNA is not just a descriptor or a blueprint for your physical protein structures in your body, although it is that. Like, your DNA is the code of you that determines in your body, are your eyes going to be brown? Is your hair going to be brown? How tall are you going to be? Yes. What's the shape of your elbow? All of that, yes. But your DNA, more accurately, is your light body bridge connection to time. Your DNA is directly connected to this shape. Burn that into your brain. DNA is connected to the shape. DNA is connected to the shape. All right, good. Okay. This shape is, of course, as I shared with you last week, a multi-tiered fractal shape. That you have a big giant one that's up around you. If you can stick out your arms up above your head. Everyone want to do some movement exercise with me? If you can, and if you are able, can bring your arms all the way up above your head, as tall as you can be. That's how tall your energy field is. All the way out to the sides. Feel your arms expand all the way to the sides. Don't hit things in your environment. All the way behind you. This is how big your energy field is. And then also, of course, all the way down below you. So you have a big, giant energy field that is not tangible. That is your red chakra. And it also correlates to your physicality presence. And then within that, you have nested, fractal, calibrated, proportional, smaller and smaller versions of this same exact shape. And that is what the concept of a fractal is. A fractal is a concept or a form that is repeated on a smaller and smaller and smaller scale. And it basically is infinite in each of these directions. And we went through what the colors of the rainbow are. Let us re-emphasize, because musicians learn through emphasis. Is take it from the top, everyone. Red is physicality. So that's not only your physical body and cellular structure, but it also represents matter. The stuff that's in the room with you, like your ceiling, a tree, even a fly that is flying around. Physicality stuff. Orange is always going to be 1/2 the size of red, and orange represents mammalian emotions. These are mostly things that people affiliate with attraction, romantic love, feelings of sometimes revulsion or rejection, deep emotions, passions, and things that you care deeply about. Yellow is the intellect, and that is here at the solar plexus, and this is what most people call the human mind. It is OS human, it is your ego state, and it is highly hacked. It is so hacked. So let's say this in a less jocular tone. It has been interfered with quite extensively in your biological evolution in your brain. Red is brainstem, what they call the reptilian mind. Orange is the limbic system and your mammalian feeling centers. It's a lot of that stuff in your midbrain. And yellow is the convoluted surface area, the cerebrum. And that's where a lot of your cognitive thought occurs. And for a long time in history, that was the definition of what it is to be a human, because humans have so many implants at the level of the solar plexus that humans have not been accurately accessing everything from green and up. So that's everything from your heart all the way up. And the heart is unconditional love. And what that is not romantic love, but is a tone of being fully inserted or seamlessly meshed with time itself. When you are moving through time at one moment per moment,
and you're not thinking about the past and you're not anticipating the future and you're totally in the groove with the music, then you are emitting love. And so you can be in love with time, you can be in love with the world, you can be in love with the planet, but this is not like romantic teenage love or love, as I try to call it. There's a very, very beautiful state of divine connection. And it's necessary to get to that level to be able to then get access to the higher faculties. And so turquoise over here, this is actually authenticity. We think of it as communication because, of course, like my voice comes out of here, and anything that comes outward from your arms, that's going to be gesturing, writing, painting, playing a piano, anything you do with your hands, making stuff. These are all forms of communication. But what we're really talking about is authenticity, which is a form of truthfulness. And then upward from there, this is deep blue or indigo, and that's your pineal gland. It's also your Christ chakra. It's your eye of time. It's your connection to higher states of pure insight beyond the intellect. It's your true mind. And it is at that place that you actually have real thought, not just the cognitive thought of like, I am hungry, I will make a sandwich now. Like, this is where you have deep insights, and they are mostly nonverbal. And this is where you have verbalized thought down here. And verbalized thought is so inadequate to talk about the things that you experience up here. It could be really, really hard. And that's why I mostly paint or make instrumental music about the things that come in up here, because it's very hard for me to make the words of this level fit with the stuff that's happening on this level, okay? And then finally, I always point up here to the top of my head, like a little ballerina. That's where violet is. And that's the highest note in your octave. But violet is actually at the center of every single one of your cells. It's actually in the nucleus, and it's your DNA. Your DNA is the highest vibration or quality of your physical body, and it's where you plug into divine consciousness. The DNA itself is an amazing molecule. You can't think of it as a piece of machinery. And humans right now are being so incredibly destructive to the entire world and the entire fabric of space-time because they're looking at DNA as if it is a piece of machinery. Really, really bad stuff. I just can't tell you how bad. Like, makes me go like this. Like, you know how you guys think about like some pollution that happened 200 years ago, whatever, maybe when Europeans first came to North America and they created some pollution. Oh, like how about the death of the buffalo? You're like, they're stupid and very genocidal, North Americans, Northern Europeans that came in and killed all the buffalo. Like, they screwed up the whole environment and they screwed up all the people and they did it on purpose. They're hugely wasteful. And what a big loss, right? That's the level of type of thing that we're talking about. Or cutting down giant redwoods. Like, the people that came to North America. They're like, nice big giant trees here. Let's cut them all down. These trees took like 2,000 years to grow. Let's cut them all down, right? Or how about like burying toxic waste? In many generations, people will look back on this generation. They'll be like, these people were so stupid. Buried a bunch of toxic waste over here. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, it's going to get in the water. It's going to make problems. They didn't know what the F they were doing. They made a lot of problems. The stuff that is being done to DNA right now is such a horrific pollution that future generations will look back on this with similar levels of dismay at the folly. There will be future generations, but because we've crossed all these like negative nodes where there would not be a future, or people would be sterile or whatever. So there will be future people, but they'll look back on folly of this time with just cringe, like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Yeah, because it's really dumb and really wasteful and really harmful in a way that is almost impossible to clean up. Terrible stuff, terrible bad stuff. So yeah, DNA is not a machine, and you can't treat it like a machine. First of all, it has behavior. So that means it's not just a code, a blueprint, like as it has been portrayed in human science. It has behavior. And so that means that if it's a book,
It's more like a choose your own adventure novel where you can read it one way and it says one thing, or you can read it in a completely different way and it says something completely different. So there's behavior, and the behavior is called epigenetics. EPI is the prefix. That means, I'm sorry, I don't always get my brain right, but EPI is at the beginning of the word, and that means a phenomenon within a phenomenon. So epigenetics is a larger code that informs the physical molecular blueprint that is your DNA about how it is going to behave in terms of expressing some things but not expressing other things. So just because something is written into your DNA does not mean that it is inevitable to either evidence it or embody it or experience it. So just because your DNA says your elbow will be shaped like this, it doesn't mean that your elbow will be shaped like this. Only if it is read and like read like perceived, not the color red, and expressed. And that is the action of epigenetics. RNA is essential in the reading or accessing of the information and the expressing of the information. So your DNA, first I need to hydrate. DNA is coiled up like a scroll. Like an ancient scroll. Scrolly scroll, scroll. It scrolls up. When it's all scrolled up like this, the words are inside and it cannot be read. That means, what if you have some bad information in there? That's like how to be sick, how to have a disease, how to die. If your body scrolls it on up, then it just becomes an inert chapter in you. It's not something that is expressed. And if it is unscrolled, then it is accessible to the RNA messengers. They can read it and they can create either the proteins or the biological architecture that expresses the truth that is written in that scroll. So the rolling up form, this is called methylation. Methylation happens around a histone. And I'll show you pictures of this, but first I'll describe it. Where you have first a strand of DNA that reminds you a lot of like a strand of yarn. Like it's the first formfulness of being able to create something that's going to be a sweater. But then it has to go around these proteins that are called histones, and it wraps around the proteins. And then there's like a spool of thread. As it wraps around these spools, it starts to achieve greater levels of complexity. And this is the process of chromatin becoming a chromosome. So chromatin is just a ball of yarn. That's not even wrapped up like a ball. It's just a giant tangled mess. And that's what your DNA is doing most of the time in your cell. Most of the time, your DNA is not a perfectly knit sweater. Most of the time, it's just this giant vibrating mass of chromatin that does all sorts of cool stuff. And it mixes itself all up and it splices itself, it unsplices itself, puts itself together, it puts itself apart, does all sorts of cool things. And it's that behavior that actually has a huge impact on your levels of health, your levels of vitality, and in this class, most importantly, where you are in this sculpture. Where you are. Are you going at an angle like this and you're going to hit the membrane of death, which is kind of where my fingernails are? My fingernails are on the membrane of death. Inhale. I'm joking. Or are you going to go like this, which is going towards that central convergence point, which is the singularity, which is the place that you emerged from and the place that you intend to return to. All of that is determined by DNA behavior. Good, not good. All determined by DNA behavior. And DNA behavior is influenced by things that you are largely in control of. And that would be things like your thought forms, your emotions, your feeling states, your value system, your beliefs, and other things that are behavioral and motivational and cognitive contextual. So basically, different ways of framing things or conceiving of things or thinking about things has a huge impact on the actions of your DNA. And it's so important that you come here to this class and you expose yourself to my worldview, because that's a lot of what I have to share. As I share things with a template, like share things with you as a template where I have found freedom
from this contextualization and worldview. That's what I mean. Like, take this song that I'm creating with my body and then internalize it into your self state and run with it and make it your own. Customize it to who you are, customize it to what you have experienced, customize it to your present life circumstance, and then express it as truth through that unique viewpoint of who you are in the world. The DNA expression of truth has to do with possibilities, probabilities, what narratives can happen in your life, time. Let's say like this. When your DNA, first of all, what is supercoiling? Because I was about to say when your DNA is supercoiled. So let's start off with what is supercoiling? Supercoiling is a very efficient packing method to be able to get a strand of DNA that is really like as long as a football field, all coiled up into something that's so small that it can get into a tiny little microscopic piece of your cell. Okay, so super efficient packing methods. And the supercoiling, when it happens in different stages of coiliness or twistiness, your DNA creates this shape, the toroidal shape. So let's talk about, we want to talk about supercoiling, but we also want to talk about places in nature where you can perceive this shape. One of them is on a microscopic level, and that is at the level of supercoiling. One of them is around your own body. So I should say it in better ways so you don't get confused. Some of these examples are physical five senses examples. Some of these examples are energetic examples that you can perceive with measurement equipment in the five senses realm. Some of these are time energy or esoteric energy that cannot yet be perceived by the five senses in the physical realm. Those are those flies. Okay, so first let's talk about your DNA. Your DNA can be perceived in a microscope. And when it is supercoiled at a certain level of supercoiling, it makes structures that are shaped like the torus. This is important because any place in nature where you have a torus, you can turn it into a flying river lasagna. And you're like, what? I want to turn it into a flying river lasagna, Aurora. Because if you do that, you gain an additional degree of freedom. We will talk about gaining degrees of freedom today. We are going to go through how to build the dimensions. It's a big day. Big day, everyone. Really, get ready. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. You're going to work hard here. So another scale. So that's on the microscopic scale. At the scale of you, you have this shape all throughout your body. So that is esoteric energy, energy of your time body or pure consciousness, things that humans can't see with their eyes and haven't yet developed an apparatus to express or perceive it yet. On a larger scale, you have Earth's magnetosphere that is shaped exactly like this. And that is something that humans can't see with your eyes, but you can perceive it through measurement equipment and also through the phenomenon that is known as the aurora borealis or the aurora australis. So we're going to talk about that, but then also there's one up from there. You have the Earth having a magnetosphere around it that's shaped like a torus. But then you also have the sun. And the sun's heliosphere is shaped exactly like this torus as well. You cannot perceive it with your five senses, literally because it is so enormous. It is so big. It goes from the sun all the way to like Pluto, the exoplanets, all the way out. It's very, very, very big. So you can't see it just because of the scale of it. And it's very, very difficult to measure it. But you can see evidences of it. So rewind a little bit and get back to Earth and Earth's magnetosphere. So Earth has, first of all, a crystalline core. It's a metallic crystal of metals or crystals. And as the metallic crystalline core is doing its fantastic dance inside of the planet, it makes a magnetic field. There is a connection between electricity and magnetism. Anytime you've got an electron or a bunch of electrons that are doing stuff, they make a magnetic field. And the magnetic field is always going to be at 90-degree angles to the flow of the electrons.
remember 90-degree angles. Just bookmark that for the moment, okay? So you have the core inside of Earth doing its amazing dance. And what that does, it's electrical. It creates this magnetic field around the planet that is shaped exactly like the torus. And so say my face is the center of the Earth, the energy of our planet, you have the North Pole and the South Pole, and the energy of our planet goes around like this, around like this, around like this. But then also sometimes it goes down like this, and around like this, and around like this. And these are complementary, they are called stasis fields. Okay, so now we got to talk about fields. Fields are created by waves. So here's a wave, trace it on your screen. Up and down, and then an up again, and then a down again. And the wave is made from a circle. My hands are supposed to be a circle, but they're not perfect. Imagine a circle, but we're going to cut it in half like a grapefruit. We're going to cut it in half, and we're going to hinge it so that now it's like this. That's a wave. Here's the down, and here's the up. Okay, so we have first circle. That's like the primary building block of the universe or cosmic infrastructure. Then we cut it in half, and then we get waves. And what if you line up a bunch of waves? Line up a whole bunch of waves, a whole big ocean of waves. Then you get a field, and that is a force field. And when these force fields are calibrated and balanced in exactly the right way, what you have is a stasis field. And so the torus is, or toroid, is really a stasis field. Earth's magnetosphere is a stasis field. The energy that goes around like this is balanced with the energy that goes around like this. And guess what else? There's also energy that goes around like this. Figure eights, figure eights, figure eights. I know. So these are some of the basic dance movements of how energy is flowing, not only around the planet, but also around you. For anybody who does my Tuesday morning dance group, you know this because I teach you that all the time. I teach you, here's your midline, and then in your physical body, like you're a microcosm, fractal nature of the earth, you've got two big giant bubbles of energy to the left and the right of you. And you have some energy that comes inward through your head and comes down here and then goes outward through your feet. And you have some energy that comes upward through your feet and up the midline and up out the top of your head. And this is the balanced nature of who and what you are. Then you also have the sun. And the sun is doing exactly the same thing, but just on a giant scale. And the amazing thing is that all of these fractals fit together. The giant outer envelope bubble of the sun's heliosphere, and then Earth's magnetosphere, and then your personal energy bubble, and then the energy bubbles that are in your DNA, and then even inside of your DNA on the atomic level, all of these little tiny bubbles that are inside of you, they all fit together. This is the nested fractal nature of reality. And it's important for you to know that there's a direct connection between Earth and the sun. This is big stuff. You got to recalibrate your mind because you think, like, I am not close to the sun, Aurora. The sun is 93 million miles away. In fact, I read it in a science textbook. And I'm like, no, you are actually directly connected to the sun right now. You are not far away. You're like, Aurora, if I was on the sun, I'd be burning up. My feet would be burning up. I can't be on the sun right now. You are connected to the sun right now. In fact, there's literally something called Earth's footprint. And so Earth's magnetosphere has this wonderful figure eight quality, figure eight quality, figure eight quality, and also circles here and circles here. And we're going to master that. I'm going to draw it for you in greater levels of detail. Let those those flows or those dance movements connect with the larger field lines of the sun. So Earth's little figure eights going around like this and around like this and around like this connect with the sun's giant figure eights that are coming in like this, and then we'll go for millions of miles and then come up and around and around and around. So there's actually something that can be measured and perceived by science. They call it Earth's footprint. And that is the place where our planet literally has like a connection, like an object not drawn to size. If this is the Earth and this is the sun, there's a place, it goes almost, if you can imagine, like a shadow, like where you see
Earth has a connection to the sun. There will be like a little circle on the surface of the sun, where it's like that is Earth's footprint on that day at that moment. So the upshoot of this is that your mind can conceive of it, even though you are not physically touching the sun with your physical feet, your energy body is an energy force field that's connected to your planetary energy body that is within and connected to the sun's planetary energy body, or I don't know if it's planetary, celestial energy body. And that this is a direct connection between all three of those things. All right. So I'm helping you to recalibrate your consciousness now to recognize that the sun is a giant light object, and that through your connection to the planet, and then through you, and then to your DNA, this is all light that is flowing through the toroidal architecture. Say that again. So light flows around the heliosphere. Light flows around the Earth's magnetosphere. Light flows around you and your individual toroidal architecture. Light flows around the toroids in your DNA. And this is all light body stuff. Let's get back to rewinding the aurorae, the aurora borealis and aurora australis. So if this is the Earth, all right, you've got the magnetosphere that's up here creates a wonderful display, phenomenon that is called northern lights. That's what borealis means. And the vortex that's down at the bottom, the South Pole, is the australis. That's what that means. That's why it is called that. And my name Aurora is very specific because the Earth's aurorae are the end result of what happens when the sun's energy comes and interacts with Earth's magnetic field. So this is separate from the sun's magnetic field. We're talking about solar wind, which is high energy particles, coronal mass ejections, neutrinos, protons, and protons are different than photons, even though those two things sound alike. But all of these different high energy particles that are like a wind, like imagine the wind is blowing through your hair, wind is blowing through your hair, it's blowing directly at you. That is what is coming off of the sun. And when that wind interacts with this magnetic force field, the magnetic force field channels the high energy particles into these curvature structures and into what is our planet's North Pole, and then into the core at the center of the planet, and then down through the bottom. And then also there are reverse currents where it goes in the opposite direction. So the phenomena that you see in the sky that are known as the aurorae are the end result of the combination of the abstract consciousness of the sun and the physicality presence of the Earth. And that's me. That's exactly who I am. I am the end result of solar, stellar, celestial consciousness coming into an Earth body. So my name is Aurora, okay? So we're going to have to talk a lot about magnets. Magnets have a North Pole and a South Pole. And the energy field, magnetic energy field of a dipole magnet is shaped exactly like this. This is the North Pole and this is the South Pole. And if you ever do those little science kit experiments with, magnetic iron filings, it makes a shape that looks exactly like this. This is called magnetic field lines, okay? So we're getting into the concept of duality, North versus South. North versus South, and light versus dark, and thing versus no thing, and the binary system. And I have a whole teaching all about duality, but we're just going to do like the first level on this introductory initiation. Duality derives in large part from your biology. 2 eyes. Most people here have 2 eyes. And you have binocular vision. And literally your neurology is designed to compare one thing against another thing. Like the view of one eye versus another eye, or the view of something that is lighted, like my skin, versus something that is not lighted, like this shadowed area in the background. You're like, I know there's a thing there because I see light here and I do not see light here, right? Stuff versus no stuff, thing versus no thing, or right eye versus left eye. And this is called duality. And then humans, from their biological architecture and their proclivities or things that you presume based upon them, your innate presumptions, created a whole philosophy, a whole ethical philosophy that is called good versus evil. Like thing versus thing, right eye versus left eye, good versus evil, light versus dark. And this is a whole philosophy about the world. It is very much based in or in the foundation of the mechanics of your body. And you would have a very, very different view of the world if you didn't have such a dualistic, literal eyesight. Okay. Let's talk about what is the binary system. I'm like ranging all over today. I told you, lesson 2 is deep stuff. You got to watch all these things. The binary system was not actually invented by Newton. It was invented by one of his contemporaries, who was Leibniz. And it is foundation of our current computer system, digital architecture, all of this complex stuff that allows us to, whatever, have a Zoom meeting like this. Different ways of representing information through ones and zeros. So let's talk about binary. Instead of using all of the 9 numerals that you are familiar with, like numbers 1 through 9, and then also 0, which is the empty set, binary only uses a 1 and a 0. And that is done in order to represent tiny switches inside of a computer or calculation device where something is either on or off. That's it. Only get 2 choices, chocolate or vanilla, on or off. All right. So you have 0, which is off, and then you have 1, which is on. But I'm going to right now help you to transcend duality, which is what the flying rainbow lasagna does. Class, let's count. How many things am I holding up over here? Count with me. 1, 2. Correct. I'm holding up 2 things. But wait a minute. Aurora, the numerals that you're holding up are only 0 and 1. So even though I am only holding up 2 symbolic structures that represent either nothingness or the number 0 and 1, I am holding up 2 objects. And there's the implication of duality. 2 things. Not only the numbers 0 and 1, but actually the number 2. I hope that got across, because I don't know if I heard a slam dunk in my mind connecting to you guys. Because I said I was going to help you to transcend duality, and then I told you that there's 2 things. And you're like, you just gave us duality. I'm angry and upset. Okay, just cool down. Cool down, everyone. Although it seems like you only have the option of nothingness or somethingness, these represent 2 options. And that means that there is something beyond this number. Actually have 3 options. 1, 2, and 3. And you're starting to get there. Let's talk about how to build the universe. Because you're going to get that 90-degree angle and adding an additional degree of freedom. And every time you add 1, you're going to get it by seeing this. Just draw pictures. Get a new whiteboard. Okay, we're going to start off with, and we haven't even done the singularity yet. Brains are going to explode. All right. First of all, this is the 0th dimension. And it is the 0th dimension as the starting point, not because it's worth nothing, but because it's worth everything. This actually represents infinity. It is everythingness, not nothingness. And it's the 0th dimension because we don't have to write any kind of address on a letter. If we want to send a letter to this place in time space, we don't have to address it. Do you know why? Everybody lives there. This is literally the house that everybody and everything lives in. That's supposed to be a house. Everything in the entire world lives there. I know this might be hard to conceive of. That's why, like, singularity is deep stuff. The 0th dimension is very, very deep stuff. I will say it again. Singularity is the point in time space where all of the laws of physics break down and do not make sense anymore. So as I say these things to you, if you're like, Aurora, that doesn't make sense, I want to just kind of like assuage you. Be like, do not be concerned if my descriptions of the 0th dimension don't make sense to you.
It is a very cognitive dissonance, anti-intuitive, difficult thing to conceive of. All right. When I draw this for you, let's get a different color here. Every place that I'm scribbling around it doesn't actually exist. Even though on your screen, there's lots of white areas where I'm scribbling in purple, that actually does not exist. All that exists is that little dot. And the most amazing miracle that can happen is when the consciousness that is totally compact and stuck together at that little dot, at that little convergence point, has a concept of expansion at one point. Miraculously, the consciousness that is at the 0th dimension at some point in its existence has this thought: what would happen if some part of me wasn't here with me, but was somehow somewhere else? And this is the beginning of how you build the cosmic infrastructure. The first dimension, the dot that is imagined, can be literally any place else. It could be here, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. It doesn't matter where it is. All that matters is that it's the envisionment or consideration of some part of me is not here, but is instead somewhere else. And in doing that, that somewhere else is created. And now what you can imagine is many, many dots that line up. Of course, they would be perfectly shoulder to shoulder, and my pen is not that accurate. So we're just going to draw it like this. You can imagine the first dimension is made by creating a line, a series of dots that connects that other point in space. And that is called the first dimension, because it only takes one piece of information to determine the position of a point on the line. So this gets into like the number line. Like when you were in grade school, they probably taught this to you. Like, you know, you have numbers that go on a line. And here we're starting off with the lower numbers, and then we go in higher numbers as the line goes on this way. You only need to have one number to tell you where you are. Like, are you at, this would be like 1/2? Are you at 1/4? Are you at 1/3? Like, where are you on the line? Or are you here at are you at 5 over here? Or are you at 500, which is all going to be all the way over here? You only need one piece of information, all right? Now, here's where you will deploy your 90-degree angle, all right? What is 90 degrees to this line? And the answer is, it is in this direction. That's where you will find the second dimension. So I'm going to change colors so that you don't get too confused. The second dimension is what happens when you line up a bunch of lines next to each other. This counts as being 90-degree perpendicular to the first dimension. And what we get is a plane. And it's a second dimension because it takes two pieces of information to say what is the position of a point in that plane. Like, here's a giant purple dot. We need, in order to describe where that dot is, an X and a Y value. Here's your X and here's your Y. We have to say that it's, you know, if you're telling someone like, where are you parked, right? I'm on Main Street and the corner of First Avenue. Got to have two streets to really say where you are, because you don't just have one street, which is what the first dimension is. Now we're going to say, what is 90 degrees to the second dimension? And this is a pretty easy answer for you guys. You know why? Because you live in the third dimension. You are really, really familiar with it. You know what it looks like. It would be like jumping off of the surface of the second dimension. And every time I make this little 90-degree angle here, that's what that is. That's a 90-degree angle. So you've got the flat plane and then jumping off the surface of the flat plane. So now what you have to envision is, what happens if you make many, many, many like flat pieces of paper or flat playing cards, and you stack them all up. Let's stack them all up, stacking them up, stacking them up, stacking them up. And what do you end up getting? Then erase that because it's a little bit messy and it's hard for you to see. But what you get is a cube. Third dimension is a cube. Take a moment to draw this correctly. There we go.
And it's the third dimension because it takes three pieces of information now to describe the position of this purple dot. Got to have an X, a Y, and a Z. Because you know what? You're not just, where did I park on the street? I'm on the corner of Main Street and First Avenue. But guess what? I am also in a parking garage. And the parking garage has floors. How many floors upward am I in the parking garage to be able to remember where my car is, right? Now, the next leap that we're going to do is 90 degrees to the third dimension. Class, what is 90 degrees to the third dimension? And you're all going to just be there kind of like, dum, 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 dum. Hope Aurora doesn't call on me. I don't know the answer. I'm like, that's because this is a trick question. There is no spatial place that is 90 degrees to the third dimension. All of these other dimensions that I just talked about here are spatial dimensions. 0, 1, 2, and 3 are places in space. But the fourth dimension and everything that is higher is a time dimension. And so the answer of what is 90 degrees to the third dimension is not a place you can point to. It is an experience of time. And what we have to conceive of is, what if I had, we'll draw these boxes in red in order to stay consistent with the third dimensional red time box. I'm going to just draw them as if they're squares, but please note these are all cubes. What if we line up a bunch of cubes next to each other like this? That is what the fourth dimension is. It is a timeline. Many, many, many third dimensional cubes lined up next to each other. Okay, just draw a bunch of them. You know, I have to go across your whole screen. I'm very obsessed. We're almost there. Okay. This represents a timeline. And let's say that in this timeline, this is the beginning over here, and time flows in this direction. And let's also say that this is directly analogous to something like a train, where you have, these are individual train cars, and then there's connections between the trains. Here are these little squiggly connections. Those connections, that's your DNA. Your DNA and the dance of your DNA and the movement of your DNA is literally what connects consciousness from moment to moment. So first of all, each one of these boxes represents a slice of time. And the slice of time is as small as we can make it while cutting up a time cake and still have it cake. This is called the Planck length. And the Planck length is really, really small. The Planck length is 10 to 32nd small. That is very, very small. I should have said like negative 10 to the 32nd. It is very, 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 very tiny. It is smaller than the width of a proton inside of a nucleus. So these are tiny, tiny, tiny little slices of physical reality, okay? And they represent potentials of where matter can be. So we use this purple dot in this drawing over here that I'm expanding upon. That represents like your car is parked in a parking structure. But so here's the dot, cars in the parking structure. But what if I get in my car and I drive it, and then I drive it to a different floor of the parking structure? I'm going to drive it to the top floor. Now I drove it all the way to the top floor. The purple dot went to the top floor. Now I'm going to drive it to the bottom floor. Drove it to the bottom floor. Now I'm going to drive it across town. Now I drove it over here. Now I'm going to drive it, whatever, to another city. Now I'm going to drive it to another country. This represents the movement of matter through time. And of course, I'm using a car as an example, which is a non-sentient aspect of self. But I'm trying to get you to comprehend that the DNA that connects each of these time moments is inside of you, and that you are really connecting static moments in time with your own living apparatus and your inner system of perception. So with your eyes, you have something that's called persistence of vision. And that is what you do in order to make it look like there's fluid movement of the world around you. Like they invented the film quality, like film, like movies. moving pictures, flickering frame rates into your eyes at 26 frames per second. 26 little static images being flashed at your eyes in a second or more, 26 or more. And if you do that, then your eye perceives that as a fluid motion because your brain connects it all together. You are actually adding the interpretive structure that makes static images look as if they are moving. The third dimensional cube contains a dot that is not moving. But when you perceive it and when you add your system of interpretation to it, you create the sense of movement through time. So time is a flow. It is also a phenomenon that you are a participant and a creator of or with. It isn't something that is external to you at all. It is very much something that you are a part of. So the sun emanates time, timelines, possibilities, probabilities. You perceive them, you tie them together. You actually jump from timeline to timeline. Let me get a better color here. I'm going to use like this color. So we've been in class now. It's 3:15 or so p.m. for an hour and 15 minutes. And here, let's say this is the beginning of class, and then time marches in this direction. We all jumped from this time box over here into this time box, then into this time box, then into this time box, into this time box, all the way over to here until we finally got to this time box, 3:15 p.m. We have jumped into an enormous number of time boxes, and we've been bouncing down the timeline, and you've been doing it largely unconsciously, focusing on your intellect and not even aware of what is happening in the metabolic supercomputer of your body. But that is what the dance of your DNA does. The dance of your DNA literally propels you from one moment to the next moment. And it is beyond your intellectual, very limited capacity, but is a part of your insight and your divine connection. And that propelling through time is what we call being alive. All right? Let's go onward with this metaphor because you're doing really well. We only got up to the fourth dimension, and that is not the end of the story in any way, because this is an entire pattern from 0, which is the point, to 1, which is the line, to 2, which is the plane, back to point, line, plane. So the third dimension as a cube actually acts as a point. The first dimension, that was a little 0, that was just a little dot, that's a dot. The cube is a dot. You line up enough dots, like we have these dots lined up over here, and then you line up enough cubes, and you get a line. So let's draw that. Let's find a good color. That's the fourth dimension, a line, timeline. And now let's draw a bunch of fourth dimensional timelines next to each other. This is where it's going to start to get to be confusing for you, because you do get a time plane. And that would be considered the fifth dimension. I didn't even use the right color. But that plane that I just made is fifth dimension. But first of all, you're going to get confused. That's a terrible drawing because it's not a flat plane. These are all actually spherical. I'm working with cubes and planes because they're easy for my diagram, but you got to envision that it's spherical, like a circle and a roundness shape. But also because the fifth dimension is not a plane, it is a world of pure potential. It is actually a standing wave, a bunch of waves. It is a bunch of waves of stuff that is not stuff yet. So let's use my analogy that I always use every year in class. The bakery of time. In the bakery of time, this fourth dimensional timeline over here is like a French bread. And the French bread, you can slice it. Like I'm slicing it. This is if I would slice a long skinny bread and we would make it into little bruschetta, and then we put some nice, whatever, tomato, basil, and mozzarella on top, and you have a nice little hors d'oeuvre. Slicing the bread of time, but only have one long skinny loaf. in my analogy, you want to be like, oh, so then like the fifth dimension would be like if you have a lot of lobes on the shelf next to each other, and each one of these would represent different flavors of life. Like one flavor, like you get hit by a car, but one flavor you're okay, one flavor you get eaten by a tiger, one flavor you go and get married. Like these are all different potentials of narratives that can happen, and that's the time the time bread bakery, right, Aurora? And I'm like, no, sorry guys, it's not that simple. And you're like, wah, wah. Okay, so erase that. So the fifth dimension is not just a bunch of time breads lined up on the shelf next to each other. Oh, you can tell I need to drink. Hold on. Pardon me. The fifth dimension is bakery. It is actually the bakery room where the dough of reality is created. The fifth dimension is the place of pure potential. You have flour, water, salt, and giant mixing machines. And that is where the raw, uncooked dough of reality is created. So it is not a formfulness. To contrast, the fourth dimension does have formfulness. It has these little pictures, kind of like in a film. You could cut the film apart and you could be like, oh, look, there's the purple dot. There's the purple dot. That's where that stuff is. But the fifth dimension does not have formfulness. It's just a waveform of potential. And now you can comprehend why I get inflamed and unhappy when people talk about 5D and they use this type of kind of psyop language about what it is, envisioning that 5D is the fifth dimension. I never comprehended that. I was like, I don't compute. This doesn't make sense, because people would say like, I'm in 5D, or we're all going to go to 5D. And then we're all going to go to the smoothie shop and have a strawberry shake, and life is going to be great. And I'm like, that is not what the fifth dimension is. Like, there are not smoothie shops there. There are smoothie shops here in the fourth dimension where you can point to a box, a train car of reality, and be like, hey, that's where something is in space-time. But in the fifth dimension, there's not even space-time. There's just the potential for stuff. So wipe away all of this stuff that I think, again, is very psyop, 3D versus 5D, not an effective way to be able to talk about this at all. And I'm getting a sense that it was a fad, that most people are moving past this, whatever it is, affectation that was foisted upon you. So now we're going to just, for the rest of the semester, talk about this accurately. Fifth dimension is a place of pure potential. And the truth is, you don't have to go there. Everyone talks about it as if it is some kind of an attainment. Like, we're going to make it to 5D. We're going to ascend. Like, first of all, that's not the end of the journey. 5D is not ascension. Going back to the 0th dimension would actually be ascension. But 5D is a place that you already interact with, instead of saying you inhabit that place, but with a part of your body that is your time body. With your, I'm holding up that sculpture if you can't see me in the thumbnail, toroidal energy field is actually, you're already in 5D. It is where the building blocks of your life experience come from. And that's why I call it the bakery of reality. So also, what creates this French bread? What bakes the dough in the bakery of reality? And the answer is the ovens in front of your eyes, which is observership. Your observership and your senses and your perception literally shows you not shows you, solidifies the potentials of waveforms into the actual embodied experiences of reality around you. So the fifth dimension is analogous to a plane, even though it's a sphere. We're already confusing you. But let's move onward and let's make a cube, because now we're going to have the sixth dimension. And the sixth dimension is going to be what happens if you stack up a lot of time planes, then you get a cube. And of course, I'm not going to draw it perfectly over here, but I'll just kind of draw like a sloppy drawing so you can get a sense. It's really more of a rectangle, but that would be the sixth dimension. And the sixth dimension means that there are many, many, many layers of the fifth dimension. It's going to look like lasagna when we're done with this, because they're all layered up in the pan. And every single one of those layers represents a potential waveform, like a song. Like, well, we could play it like this, or we could play it like this, or we could play it like this, or we could play it like this. It changes. It is ever changing, and you have all of these different versions. So you could think about it as saving a term paper. Like when you are working with a word processor, first you write your first draft, and that might be like this fifth dimensional song over here. And you're like, okay, I wrote this, but there's lots of misspellings and everything isn't grammatical, and just kind of got the ideas out. Then you edit it. Then you make the next layer. And you're like, wow, we're going to make this even better. We just saved that copy from the original, attempt. And then you're still going to read through it and make it more grammatical, make it even better. Then you're going to have this layer. And it's that process of refinement that is what gives you the sixth dimension. And then the sixth dimension as cube begins at the beginning of I want to say litany, the beginning of the cycle again. It is a cube that acts as a point. So here is that sixth dimensional time cube. But what we're going to do is we're going to line up many, many, many sixth dimensional time cubes. I'm just going to draw them as squares for the sake of our drawing. And then I'm going to just make them as dots because it's taking too long for me to draw squares all the way across the whole screen. That then becomes the seventh dimension. The seventh dimension is a line of sixth dimensional time boxes that are made out of fifth dimensional time planes that are made out of fourth dimensional timelines that are made out of third dimensional time boxes. All right. And so then you've got the point, the line, and what's the next thing, class? Plane. And so then you have the next one would be the eighth dimension with many, many, many seventh dimensional timelines lined up next to one another. I'm drawing them as if they are a plane, but you guys already know this one. It's actually a sphere. And that's the eighth dimension, make a different color, right? And then if I layer up like lasagna, many, many, many of these eighth dimensional layers, these are supposed to be layers on top, on top, on top. What you end up with is a ninth dimensional time cube. And we're back to the cube again. Point, line, plane, point, line, plane. And might have to plug in my thing over here. And then that becomes the zeroth dimension, or analogous to the point that is the zeroth dimension again. The ninth dimension. Wait, that's right. Write the 9 there. Okay. And then that's going to be the ninth dimension. And the ninth dimension is going to be over here. We're going to make a bunch of them lined up in the line. And the line is going to be the 10th dimension. And the 10th dimension lined up into lines is going to become plane. It's going to become the 11th dimension. You can keep going on like this, not for forever, but let's say like for a very, very, very long amount of time, like infinite. Let me plug in my thing. Let me see if I can get that thing plugged in. I want to fiddle with stuff. Fiddling with stuff. Hold on. Well, just take a moment for yourself. Just build the universe. Take a moment break. Thank you for allowing me that time. Okay, good. Okay. Are you all right? Do I need to check in with you? Are you okay? Does anyone need like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? You're all right. I should pull up my notes. My notes are extensive. I sent out my notes in the email. All right. So let's get back to what is a solenoid. Okay, wait, but first I know you need to I feel like I need to care for you. Are you okay? You are not overwhelmed. Good. I want to talk about what is a solenoid and how do we resolve duality. And then we're going to go further. And don't worry, there's lots of this throughout the whole entire semester. So if you're not getting this all immediately right now, we'll go over this many, many times. Okay. So in a dipole magnet or in Earth's magnetosphere, you have the North Pole and the South Pole, right? And these two things are diametrically opposed, literally in the opposite direction. Here, where's my pen? North Pole versus South Pole. And they're always in opposition to one another. But what would happen? What would happen if I took this like Superman and bent it all around? and made it so that one end reached the other end. First of all, the magnets attract one another. North Pole and the South Pole attract one another, and they would stick together. And then what else would happen? The energy lines, field lines that are created like this change from being outside to being inside. And you get this thing that is called a solenoid, which is a non-self-conflict resolution of duality. This is all like deep, important stuff because I'm using the examples from the natural world of observable five senses, like, science and things like that, to be able to talk about spiritual truth. When you're looking at things in the world and you see thing versus thing, or good versus evil, or light versus dark, the resolution of that is non-duality, which is the joining together of those two former opposites. But when I do that, I don't want you to fall into the false New Age shadow work. So now you can see why I'm so protective over my curriculum here, because as I created it, like, more than 10 years ago at this point, so much of it, I think, has been cherry-picked and hijacked and then mutilated and then fed back into you for the purposes of consternation and to make you think that like duality and resolving duality means that, like evil schmeevil, like you kind of just forgive evil or something, or like it becomes nonsense or inconsequential, or like you hug a demon. And like, no, hug a demon, no. So the joining of the North Pole and the South Pole is about resolving duality on an energetic level, but none of this is about being an apologist for evil. None of this is about accepting or celebrating things that should not exist, or allowing behavior or characteristics that are non-life affirming to be in existence. Actually, as you are flying rainbow lasagna, as you are doing this with your DNA on a genetic level, a lot of what you're doing is sorting out the characteristics, those that you wish to amplify, the good, health, life-affirming characteristics inside of you, and those that you wish to diminish, turn down the volume on, and make go bye-bye permanently. And same thing in your society. Like in your body is a microcosm of your planet, and your social dynamics represent your body as well. So there are some things in your world that you're like, these are healthy social human dynamics, things that we want. We want more of this, right? Turn up the volume on this song. This is a good song. And you can imagine in your mind things that you want more of. But then there are also some things that you want to turn down the volume on. Like maybe you want to turn down the volume on psychopathology. That is not good stuff. And what psychopathology is actually a broad term, but it really involves a lot of characteristics. Some of them are the tendency to violate. So that's not actually a very good tendency at all. And when we start to talk about genetic characteristics, think about this. Like, what is something in nature that is a violator? Like a mosquito. It has that long, skinny proboscis, and it goes to you and it sticks itself into you. And you're like, hey, that is my epidermis, and these are my boundaries. And technically, Mr. Mosquito, you are not Mrs. Mosquito, because it's the girls that bite you. You're Mrs. Mosquito. You are not supposed to stick your nose inside of me and get my blood. It's my blood, it's my skin, not supposed to get inside of me. All right. But they do that in, their ways, part of their survival characteristics, right? And you'd be like, okay, like, small amount, like you can survive. But if you were had it too much, you would die. If you had whatever, there's got to be a calculated number we could come up with. 10 million billion mosquitoes all sticking their proboscis into you at one time. This is very dark at this point. I hope we can laugh about this, my analogy of death by mosquito. But that would be a very bad thing. Very bad thing. And you would die. A little bit of a mosquito bite, you'll be okay. But too much and you will die. Now think that it's not just you, it's the fabric of space-time. The tendency to violate is actually a psychopathology. It means putting your nose where you don't belong, sticking yourself into somebody else, getting their blood when it's not yours. And a little bit of that can be tolerated. But if it is done to too great of an extent, it will destroy the fabric of space-time. And so I consider the tendency to violate is a psychopathology. It's a negative characteristic. It's tolerated in small amounts, but if it becomes over exaggerated in our world, it can cause the death of our whole entire world. And I turn down the volume on that as one of the characteristics that I think is not life affirming. Generosity is a characteristic that I amplify. I'm like, this is a good one. It's generosity is the tendency to want to give to others. And like, what would happen in the world if you just gave to others and you didn't, whatever, do commerce or avarice or greed? Commerce is fine. Avarice and greed, those are like the things you want to turn down, right? Generosity is a positive characteristic. You would not have anything bad happen if you were just like, just want to give you stuff. And no, you'd actually have a pretty good world, but you also have to look at sustainability. So a big part of this torus, why it is a standing wave, is because it's imbalance. The energy that's going into the center, vertex point singularity, is equal to the energy that is emerging from there. And this is how I know that we will go home. This is how I know that we will re-achieve light speed and beyond and get back to this place that emanated us. Because if we don't go back, then the system is not a sustainable system. Like if you're constantly sending, like imagine a well of energy or water, and you're constantly like spraying it all out, shooting it everywhere. At a certain point, the well goes dry because there's nothing going back inside, right? This is simple, common sense. In order for it to be sustainable, there must be a balance between energy that both emerges from the center and energy that returns to the center. And that's why one of the primary circulatory patterns through this beautiful shape is the figure 8. So here it is emerging from the center. There's actually a big unseen circle over here. And then it goes back to the center. And then it emerges again. And then it goes back to the center. And this is you. This is actually you in your journey. So let's do, first of all, right now, I got to hydrate, and then we do basic energy patterns of this shape. I'm telling you, lesson 2 is jam-packed. It's like I'm getting through a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot I haven't gotten through, and it's all important stuff. So basic energy patterns going around this shape. First of all, you have just circle. Circle, 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 circle. And then, of course, you have one over here. Then you have what happens if you go around in the figure 8. Figure 8, figure 8, figure 8, figure 8. But this is a 3-dimensional shape. I'm treating it as if it is a slice, and it's not 3-dimensional. You have these amazing vortices up above. So you actually also have one shape that's going like this, circle, 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 circle. And of course, one that is like this, one that is like this, one that is like this. And because you have those guys, the way that this all ends up working is this becomes a vortex with energy coming from the wider end, vortexing down to the specific. So that is why when I showed you my time diagram last week, I drew it as if it was very simplified with like lollipop shaped timelines that go like this, like this, like this. But you guys have to know that this is actually a spiral, 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 spiral that goes all the way up to the top. Okay, so how is this shape created? Now let's do some picture pages. I didn't know Princess Cheeky might be here. We might need to say hi to Princess Cheeky. Princess Cheeky is here. Wait, hold on a second. Stop share. In fact, you know something? Take a brief pause. We're gonna have a brief pause before I get going on picture pages. Thank you for that brief break. And now on to picture pages. And I'll get to all of your wonderful questions and comments. Thank you so much for them. Well, clearly this needs to get reduced over here. This needs to get reduced over here. And then we're finally, because I always meticulously organize everything for class. Okay, so this is an important drawing that I have for you here. This is about, let me just turn on my silly old treadmill over there. And batteries, that's why. Okay. And we can move the notes aside. So this is a old sketch that I did, but still beautifully relevant, about how the torus or double torus or 4 vortex shape is created and how that relates to the flying rainbow lasagna. And the first thing is to look at the area where in this upper quadrant, first you start off with the sphere. The sphere is the primary shape of everything in our cosmic infrastructure. And it's important to know this because the sphere has an outer surface and an inner surface. However you want to conceive of it. If you think of it as an orange, like first there is the outer surface where the orange skin is very bumpy and hard. Then there is the inner surface. There's the white pith, and then there's everything that's the juicy part and the inside of the orange. The important part with all of this is to comprehend that the outside surface and the inside surface do not communicate and interact when the sphere is shaped like this. And even when it turns into these more complex vortex features, there is still a distinction made between the outside surface and the inside surface. Duality, outside versus the inside. So this, and this, these are just 3 different conventions that I have for being able to portray the same exact thing. They are all 4 vortex shapes. So here you can envision if you have these lines of force that come from what would be considered the outside, vectoring or traveling towards the epicenter of the sphere. And as they do that, there is like a pinching or a dimpling of the fabric of space-time. All of these lines of force converge on singularity. And when they do so, they create these beautiful 4 vortices. This is a flowing membrane. There's dynamic energy movement around the shape that makes this happen. But even as these vortex and dimples or deformations happen, there is still a distinction between the skin, that is the outer skin, the bumpy orange color of the outside of this orange, and the white pithy interior. In order to make the flying rainbow lasagna, what we do is, here you can see the 4 vortex shape. That's what this is. And we have it laying on its side. We're going to cut it in half, kind of like a grapefruit. Then what we're going to do is make one of the singularity center points go up, random to the context that you're in, and one of them go down. Up and down, these are, don't really, this like in zero gravity, there is no up, there is no down, but let's just pretend that there is up and there is down. They move in complementary opposing directions. And by doing that, create the flying rainbow lasagna, where I am presently wiggling my cursor, that is empty space or negative space. It is a higher dimension. And when we do this, then it makes it possible for the outside surface and the inside surface to seamlessly communicate. And none of this destroys the integrity of the original time sphere. That is very important. So I'm going to talk a lot more about that and a lot more about singularity. But first, let's talk about what your DNA is doing when you're supercoiling. This is a screenshot from a video used without permission. Hope nobody sues me. This big giant green blob is what RNA is. RNA is a messenger, and this really relates to things that are going on in your world right now and all the silly science things that they're doing to people. And that messenger is able to access and read what is happening in DNA. So once again, in order to make use of the information that is in the scroll known as your DNA, it must be unscrolled. And here you can see what DNA looks like when it is relatively unfurled. These things are the histones. This is your DNA. You can see that there's both a major and a minor groove, or 2 skinny groove here and fat groove here. And what the RNA does is it moves along that line, kind of like a train moving along a train track, and it reads the bumpy surface of these proteins. And it gets information from them, and that's a code. And it's able to comprehend what is going on in the code. What RNA then also does is it makes copies. That, like, this is the original pristine blueprint, and that is not to be taken out of the rare books. And then RNA makes a copy, like a cheap Xerox, so that way you can have something to bring to the building site
And then it doesn't matter if you spill your coffee on it or get soy sauce on it, anything. I don't know if workmen at the work site are eating sushi, but I envision that they are. Mustard, something gets dripped on the blueprints. It doesn't matter because it's just a cop. And the workmen at the job site are actually the protein structures in your body, making stuff. And let's also show you, oops, not this, but this, because this also says what is chromatin and what are epigenetic hallmarks. And this is a good little description of what this is. Here's that protein spool of thread known as the histone. And here is an image of the DNA wrapping itself around the histone. Okay, now let's look at this. These are all things that I did not draw, so they're all used without permission. Make it bigger. This is a pretty good drawing because it shows you how you start off with one yarn. This is one strand of DNA. And then what happens when it gets wrapped around one of those histone structures? So this is more of a cartoon and a simplification, but you can see that it starts to make these more complex structures. And as they start to group together, that is where you get a torus. That is where you get a torus. And then you have these long lines of torus, toroids, tori, that then combine together to be able to create the X. This is what supercoiling is. So first of all, let's talk about and demonstrate supercoiling. If you simply have, some thread or rope and you twist it together, you are adding kinetic energy to it. And as you twist more and more and more energy into it, it starts to double back on itself. Like first it starts to kind of twine together, then it doubles back on itself and it twines together even more. This is what supercoiling is. These are these complex structures that are the end result of energy, kinetic energy being stored as potential energy inside of your DNA. Your DNA gets all twisted up. Hey, if you need to get your stuff into your carry-on luggage so you don't have to check bags going in the airport, you know what the most efficient packing structure is? It is not folding things flat. Like, fold your shirts, fold your shorts, fold everything on top and put it like this. No, it is actually to roll them. Roll them like sausages, my friends, and then put them inside of your carry-on luggage. The most efficient packing solutions for many things is to roll them up like a scroll, all right? So that is what your body does. Your body doesn't roll up the chromatin yarn into chromosomes very often. Just like you don't pack your bags very often. Most of the time you're at home. And when you're at home, where's your stuff? It's all over the place. My stuff is all over the place. My sweater's over here. My shorts are over here. Everything is everywhere. But when I need to go someplace, I'm like, okay, all of this stuff is somehow going to have to fit into this compact carrying container. That is what the chromosome shape is. So the chromosome shape is really only achieved by your DNA when you are in the moment of mitosis, which is cell division. Here's the parent cell, and it gets everything all packed up into its nucleus. Nuclear membrane dissolves, it's floating in space. And then what the cell does is it divides itself and it makes the next generation of daughter cells. And so this is important stuff. Your DNA at all other times is really very free and very fluid. And it's doing a lot of things in its behavior. Not only are there patterns in terms of supercoiling, so imagine you have one strand of DNA, you're getting it coiled up, coiled up, coiled up. It starts to make loops. So imagine each one of my fingers is a loop, right? Like a loop, a loop, a loop. If these loops are far apart, that green blob that is known as RNA can easily read the pages of my book. But if these loops are squashed close together, which is called methylated, then the scrolls are not easy to be read by the RNA, and this information is not accessible. So if this is bad stuff, bad disease, let's keep it non-accessible. Keep those pages of the book glued shut. If it is a wonderful, life-giving story of self-regeneration and athletic mobility, and even psychic gifts,
let's open those pages up so that your RNA messenger can read the pages, get the information, make the copies of the blueprints, get them out to the job site so that can be built in reality. And the difference between the loops being far apart like this and close together like this is emotion. It is emotional state. Genetic identical twins do not develop identical diseases, and they don't have identical lives. So identical twins come from the same exact egg, and they start from the same starting point. But as they move through time, they play the game of time differently, or they play the musical score of their life differently. They might have different health habits in terms of what they eat, drink, smoke, or expose themselves to. But more key point than the molecules that they ingest is their thought structures, because your thought structures determine the activity and behavior of your DNA. Sorry, Cheeky's barking. You might be having a package delivery or something like that. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, enough. Hey, enough. Thank you. Enough. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. No more. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Thought structures have a huge impact on DNA expression. What you think and what you feel really is what makes loops be far apart and accessible, or stuck close together and inaccessible. And the things that you think and feel are genuinely largely within your control. Although I know it can be difficult, and I never want you guys to be inauthentic or whatever. Like, you know, like if something is really bad in your life, be like, I'm so happy, like fake smile, like not like that, but more in the sense of what you think and believe and what's your worldview. So death is a perfect example of this. First come here as a little tiny child, your DNA is doing the most expansive dance. You are an eternal being, and you're in your little infant body, and you're like, hooray, I'm alive, and your body and your DNA is doing all this amazing stuff. And then as you become verbal and you're able to receive information from the people around you start to teach you about chronological aging and death. And death is a concept. And at first, you do not even know how to conceptualize death. But at a certain point, someone is going to explain it to you. And it might be like maybe your goldfish died or your hamster died or whatever. You were raising a baby chicken and it died. Or maybe someone who's a person in your life died. And your parents use that as an example to have a teachable moment. And they're like, well, grandma's not here anymore. Grandma went bye-bye. And you're like, well, where is bye-bye? And what is this? And they have to tell you, like, death is a thing. And they don't just tell you that death is a thing. They also tell you, so here's your DNA. You're like, they're like, oh yeah, grandma went bye-bye, grandma died. You're like, well, what is that? And they're like, well, that's when you die. You're not here anymore. And they're like, you die? And they're like, yeah. And as this information comes inside of you, your DNA changes. Literally, your DNA changes from being an expansive, immortal being that expects eternal existence into being a limited, mortal, fragile, vulnerable being that all of a sudden expects at any moment to be kind of wiped out into extinction. And all of that is a change in mind state, a change in worldview. And a lot of what I have to bring to you here is a rectification and a genuine uplift, not through some false hopefulness, but through very real, like grounded mathematics, that no, death is not inevitable at all. That is the essence of what this sculpture shows you, that death is highly probabilistic, but not inevitable, all right? So in the time vortex here, like if we were to turn it, the bottom quadrant, turn it on its bottom so that you can see it against this background, but yeah, there you go, you can kind of see it. The area around here is a high probability. Like if I'm an arrow and I'm going to go into the target, there's a very, very high probability that my arrow will go to one of these places. This is the path of least likelihood. The center timeline going up the center here, that is actually the least likely thing that will happen. Maybe if you're Robin Hood, you shoot the arrow and it goes directly into the target, directly to the perfect center of this circle. But if you're just, Joe Schmo, you don't really get it on the target that much. It takes an expert. It takes an expert, but it is possible. So that's why this central core timeline going up the center here is considered to be the path of least likelihood, is also the path of ascended mastery. It is also the timeline of divine connection or divine intelligence. And so when I draw this for you, I think that you will really start to comprehend it even more. I'll just start with a fresh whiteboard so that way you don't get too confused. So I'm going to draw like a cross section of the torus. Not that perfect. Here's a big giant purple dot. That's home. Singularity. We still need to talk a lot about the singularity today, if you guys have the energy in you. And now let's talk about, we'll make it like a red line. This is the path of ascended mastery. Start out over here and go up in this direction. It's not a very good arrow. And then you end up back home over here, okay? And what you have in the energy field of how time flows in the world, like, because you have figure eights that go around like this and like this and like this and like this and like this, but you're not on those figure eights. All of those figure eights are actually on the membrane of death. You are not on the membrane of death. Those figure eight patterns are independent of you. So are these vortex patterns independent of you. You know what is the only thing that you're actually experiencing are these straight lines that go like that. The ones that are God's fingers dimpling the fabric of space-time, because you have ones that go like that, like that. Remember I showed you that little sketch, like that, like that, like that, like that. That is actually, these are the eternal forces. These are the eternal forces that initiate and create and uphold the fabric of space-time. And the green figure eights going around like this, these are the implied results of those red force field lines making the fabric of space-time dimple. So to be really, really clear, the red lines are divine consciousness. They are the perfect math. They are the correct series of events that brings you from physicality back to the singularity and to the pure potential of light and consciousness. And everything else is a misadventure or an implied periphery. Just like in your eye, you have the focal point, and then you have the stuff that's around the edges that you can't really see. The red line over here is your focal point, divine consciousness, what it is to be an ascended master, and the path of least likelihood. The green stuff is all the periphery. This is the membrane of death. And this is all the stuff that is not really supposed to happen. You just see it as a kind of, again, peripheral or side dish potential, but not the main entree. So the red line here, that is your main entree where all of your nutrients are. And the green line over here, this is just starches and fillers. Really, you can let go of all of this stuff. You don't really need to eat this stuff. It is bread, pasta, and potatoes. It's going to fill you up, but it doesn't really give you nutrients. And this is a profound concept, actually, in terms of the architecture of the cosmos, because you have two different types of lines. One that runs in these circle patterns and one that runs in these straight line patterns. And they are complementary and non-interactive. So I'll go back to my face. Everything about what you want to do. Oh, no, I don't want that. Oh, my God, I'm pressing buttons. I don't know what I'm doing here. Everything about what you are trying to do is to align with this straight line, central core timeline, and not to interact on these circular patterns that are really the periphery of nonsense and of things that you do not wish to experience. This is where death is experienced, the periphery. The center core timeline is where eternal life is experienced. So we have more time. I'm going to keep going. We need to talk about the singularity over here. Singularity or the singularity. So when I talk about this, I'm always very clear. Science's description of the transhumanist singularity, which I am not in alignment with at all. No. Like, yuck, to it. I hate it. No, that's not me. But then there is science's description of singularity as it pertains to black holes. That is more in alignment with how I look at this place. This is the infinite stretching of the fabric of space-time. Science describes it as the place where the rules of physics break down completely. That is accurate. This is the place, that is the zeroth dimension, where everything was totally compressed and lived in an overlapping everythingness and didn't need to have an address because only no amount of information was needed to describe the position there because everyone is there. It is a place of supreme conflict and supreme novelty because everything is there and everything is happening there. Everything is happening there, including the stuff that is not happening there. Everything is there, including nothing, the things that don't exist. Language gets very, very difficult to work with here, but I'm kind of, you get my jokes. I know you do. It is the place where the fabric of space-time not breaks down, but ceases to make sense according to the rules of physics. So when human scientists talk about the black hole and the event horizon beyond which there is singularity in a black hole, what they're really talking about is science is a belief system that has been designed, physics, I should say. Let's start again. Physics is a worldview system of describing reality that has been designed to describe how the physical world is built. They're like, gravity exists. Like, you know, water stays in a glass. It doesn't just float out. Gravity is a thing. I'm standing on the surface of Earth. I haven't floated somewhere. And other aspects of organizational nature of matter and of time. So science has decided this handy dandy way of describing the world around us. It actually does come from Sir Isaac Newton. And it was positive and uplifting from like the time of the Black Plague. Like from the 1600s, when people were like literally like coming out of dark ages, it was a very useful worldview because people were super judgmental, projection, insane, manic. They didn't know what was going on. And they needed for someone to sit them down and be like, stuff sticks to the earth, not because your feet are sticky, but because of something called gravity. You know what I mean? Like, how come we don't fly off? Like, they made up all sorts of stories. That's what I'm trying to say. They would be like, oh, my feet stick to the earth because I'm made out of honey and honey is sticky. It's like, no, this is not what is going on. So physics was great. It was unifying in many ways because it got everybody on the same page. We're like, no, gravity is what sticks us to the earth so we don't all fly off, not because our feet are made out of honey. But when you get to a black hole and you reach the event horizon, get to the point where scientists who are invested in the description of reality known as physics cannot describe reality anymore because it becomes a conflict where all of the math either it gives you an answer of zero or an answer of infinity or an answer that is in conflict with other answers. So it's an area of reality that cannot be effectively described using their tools. That is what it means when you say the rules of reality break down when you get to that point. But that is a positive thing because it is a place where you still have reality, but it is not physical reality and different things are possible there. So in that place, you have novelty, and novelty is stuff that is new, and stuff that is new is stuff like flying rainbow lasagna. So you can have stuff that is both stuff and non-stuff at the same time, because at singularity is everything, even the stuff that is no thing. That you have stuff and you have non-stuff, and you have things that are happening and things that are not happening. Things are both happening and not happening at the same time in that place. It is not an adventure for your rational mind because your rational mind is going to be like, I cannot take it. Like, don't do this to me. I'm being torn into ambivalent directions. I can't deal with this. Your brain can't take the cognitive dissonance. So you have to use your insight in your higher senses to be able to perceive and know what is going on there. But this is a critical aspect of what the flying rainbow lasagna is. When you comprehend that singularity is the place where things are both happening and not happening, or seemingly in conflict, but everything that can possibly happen is happening, then you can comprehend that stuff is both there and not there. Energy and entropy. As I showed you that drawing, we're to take this sculpture, you turn it on its side. This is my hand is now a grapefruit knife. I'm going to cut it in half with my grapefruit knife. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take this inner skinny part and I'm going to pull it up like this. And I'm going to take this skinny part and I'm going to pull it down like this. And I give it a little bit of a turn, give the top hemisphere a little bit of a turn. That creates the flying rainbow lasagna. This shape is created from that singularity coming outward to here and also outward to here. So these 2 points used to be next to each other. But now they are not next to each other. Now they are expanded, and the expansion of them is actually the addition of another dimension. So I went through building the dimensions for you today so that you get a sense of what does it mean to build another dimension? What does it mean every time you add another dimension to receive an additional degree of freedom? That is what happens when you turn the toroidal architecture into a flying rainbow lasagna. You add an additional dimension, gain an additional degree of freedom. So for example, going from the spatial dimensions of flat 2-dimensional reality into a 3rd-dimensional reality, gain an additional degree of freedom. If you're a Flatlander. Oh my God, you guys have to watch the movie Flatland. It's so cute. It's an animated movie and it's really worth it. It's from a book. The book is a little bit tedious and dry, and the book, it's written by a mathematician in the 1800s, and it reads exactly like a book from the 1800s written by a mathematician. But it's Flatland, the movie, and it's on YouTube. You can find it. We can link to it if you want me to as well. Very cute animated version of this, and it will help you to really comprehend what is going on. You gain an additional degree of freedom. Because if you're a flatlander or a little ant that lives on the surface of a leaf, all you can do is crawl along on a flat plane and you cannot go anywhere. That's it. That's all you got, kid. You have the x-axis and the y-axis. But in order to gain an additional degree of freedom, you have to gain the 3rd dimension. And you could envision that as getting wings. So all of a sudden you could jump off of the 2nd dimension and fly around, or can fold 2nd dimension so that what was far distant is now close to you. Now, if you imagine that this flat plane is time, you'll get even more of this. For you, you crawl through time like the little ant. Go from your breakfast, the morning, first part of the day, through your lunch, and then all the way through to your dinner. And then you get up the next day, you do the same entire thing. But there's not really a way for you to jump from breakfast over here to dinner over here. You have all this intervening time. How are you going to get there? You have to crawl through all of this time. If you gain another dimension, what you can do is either jump off the surface of time and fly there, or can fold the fabric of space-time so that something that seemed far away is very close to you. And then you don't have to go very far at all in order to experience it. That is what flying rainbow lasagna is. And that is what real time travel is. So real time travel is not like H.G. Wells' science fiction novel where you sit in a machine and then you have a throttle that pushes forward and you go forward in time. Then you pull the throttle back, you go backwards in time. That would be like living on a timeline, the 1st dimension, but you're not doing that. So when you travel in time, you can do it the way that I do, and I would encourage you to do this. I sit in a super comfortable lawn chair outside, often looking at the sun or the stars. And then what I do is I lasagna. I jump off of the surface of the leaf and I jump to other places. And then I jump back here. Or I can envision that I stay in one place and I literally fold the fabric of space-time, maybe from the deep past to now. And maybe I will also fold a parallel dimension, one of those parallel timelines to now. and then I will also unfold it. When you are either a little ant that gets wings and can fly, or gains the capacity to fold the fabric of space-time, you can outclass anyone. Because, like, let's say you want to run away from someone, you're like, oh, I'm running away, and the other guy's chasing you. I'm chasing you. I'm chasing you. And you're like, well, I'm gonna jump off the fabric of space-time, and I'm gonna run over here. He can't chase you. He can't do that. Or what if you're like, well, I'm going to fold the fabric of space-time over here, and then I'm going to get to that, area over here, and then I'll be faster than you. Like, basically, this is the essence of what an additional degree of freedom is. Not that you will be chased by, whatever little tiny guys chasing behind you. You are more free. There are more things that you can do when you achieve an additional dimension. So in exactly the same way that your teachers or parents taught you about the existence of death, and they took your free, wonderful, expansive, genetic dance and turned it into kind of like a very limited, constrained straitjacket that's like, look, kid, you're going to die. I am trying to do the opposite, where I'm trying to give you the words and the information and the imagery that helps you to get out of the straitjacket and expand it to be like, oh, there's more that I can do. And when you recognize with your cognitive processes, there's more that you can do, that is what changes the behavior of your DNA. And as you change the behavior of your DNA, you can write new stuff with the same words. So let's say I give you a not very interesting piece of literature, like a catalog from Bed Bath and Beyond, right? It is not great literature. It ain't Shakespeare, kid. And what you can do, as long as it contains every single letter of the alphabet, and yet you have the capacity to rearrange it and to repeat it, you can turn that uninteresting catalog into the greatest literature of human history just by rearranging the letters, as long as you have all 26 letters and you're allowed to rearrange it whatever ways you want to. This is your body. Right now, your body has been rearranged into a type of genetic, not very glorious mishmash. Some stuff is true, some stuff is malevolently modified and mutated, and some stuff is just ignorance. And it's just like Bed Bath and Beyond catalog. It's like, not that great. And if you can rearrange your DNA, that means that you can rearrange it into a supremely exalted state. You can make your body a masterpiece. You can make your DNA into great literature. And that also means the life story, because your DNA is more than, again, like your eyes are brown or your hair is brown. It is about the events of your life. Identical twins might have identical eye colors, but they don't do the same things with their lives. They don't everybody become a waitress or everybody become a race car driver. They become different and exhibit individuality. And as they make different choices and they have different life experiences, their DNA is refined. Like you have a feedback loop, like you learn new things. And as you learn new things, your DNA changes and shifts. It is the dance of the DNA that propels you from train car to train car. Like, what makes you jump at this level of the Planck length? What makes you alive? The answer is it's the dance of your DNA. So when you're dead, you're not just hitting the membrane of death. That makes you dead. But dead is also when your DNA is no longer moving. So when your physical body processes cease, like if your heartbeat is no longer beating and your brain is no longer creating cognitive awareness, there are still several days when your DNA is kind of like still churning and doing stuff, but it's slowing down. The bicycle wheels are slowing down. You're losing momentum. And it takes a couple of days for the body processes at the DNA level to fully go into Deadsville. And that's a very important part of the spiritual journey for people that experience death. That is why they have these, rituals of praying for people, reading to them from sacred texts, like watching over the body. The body is not fully dead yet until it's about 3 days after the person's heart has stopped. There is still some cellular life, and the cells of the body need to kind of come to a completion on the narration story of life and be like,
Wah, wah. Sorry, thank you for playing, but you have not reached your destination and you will have to do something different now. And of course, I'm being very lighthearted to talk about death. It's a serious subject and not something that I ever want to make you feel like I'm making fun of people or anything like that. But it's good to have a sense of humor when we talk about these things. Um, yes, there is still an echo or momentum of what was a person's life even a few days after their heart has stopped beating. And that is kind of like the momentum of their consciousness and all of the narrative story structures that they were carrying inside of them. You could think of it as like expectations of like you're what are you going to do tomorrow? Like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, I'm going to walk my dog, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And when you die, then you still have like all of that momentum of your body is ready to be like, oh, like it's time for us to get up and make a cup of coffee. It's like, no, kid, you are not getting up and making a cup of coffee today. Like, you are dead. And the body takes time to be able to process that and internalize it. And it is a slow loss of momentum as the car slowly rolls to a halt. When you are alive, your DNA stays active. And so that's it. It is not inevitable for you to slowly roll to a halt and to die. Not at all. The timelines that are ending on the membrane of death over here are all misadventures. They are all non-optimum timelines. And as you're moving through life and you gain more free will, then you gain the greater capacity to navigate away from those timelines. When you're a little tiny baby, think about it. Like you can't even really like control your body. You're all over the place, kid. Like, you're like peeing, you're pooping, your arms flail all over. It's very hard to control your body. It's hard to be in control of your life. And so that's why this time vortex is shaped the way it is. See how it's a curve like this? Why is it not a straight line like this? Because the truth is, these are really short timelines over here. A lot of very short timelines when you're a little tiny baby. It is hard to get born. It is hard to stay alive once you are born because you're a tiny flailing infant. And then when you start to get over here and you start to get to be older, it's easier to stay alive. Do you know why? You had gained control of your body, also gain more control of your senses and your cognitive processes, and you can make choices. So when you're a little kid, a lot of things are out of your control, and you might feel very like your life is not in your control. And this is also part of being protective nature of what it is to be an adult or to be a parent, even if you don't have children directly. We must protect children because they are flailing and they are all over the place and they are not in control of themselves and they're not in control of their minds and they don't know what the heck they're doing in the world, right? But we've been here for a while. Like, we know how not to die. And we can help to protect them so that they don't die. And then we can also help them to achieve levels of self-empowerment so that they can keep themselves alive going further. And keeping yourself alive is much more than simply nutrition and hygiene. I've talked about that quite a lot in this class, although I know some people are here for the first time, it's your first semester. No, you have to make really good choices. And some of those choices are about like eating healthy, doing the right thing, brushing your teeth. But then some of those choices are about like, don't stand in front of a moving car. Don't play in traffic, right? Or don't jump off a bridge, or any of these things. Like, don't stand in front of a bullet. These are all important life lessons about how to achieve longevity. And it's important to recognize a lot of them are under your control. And those are just things that are about like physicality things. Choosing not to stand in front of a moving car or in front of a moving bullet, that will extend your life a lot. But then there's also things about your worldview that as you are growing older and moving through life and becoming more in charge of your own mind, you can choose what you believe and what you do not believe. And that is really how you help to navigate yourself away from the membrane of death and to generate this type of fast and sustainable genetic movement that keeps propelling you through time. When we talk about being an eternal being, it's not this type of thing where it's like set it and forget it. Like, that's an eternal being. Like, they'll just be eternal no matter what. Like, you're an eternal being if you do the right stuff. If you do the right stuff, you can't just take life for granted or take being an eternal being for granted. You must do stuff to keep your energy field moving, to keep your DNA alive and vibrant, and to keep yourself propelled through time. If you are no longer propelled through time, you're a dead corpse. And also, entropy is the concept of something no longer being propelled through time. So when the consciousness leaves the body, it is hopefully going to entropy. It is hopefully not going to hang around as some kind of, like unresolved ghost or something like that. It goes to entropy. It ceases to move through time. Something that ceases to move through time, if time looks like like a big giant square or something like that, it just gets stuck there. It just stays there. It does not keep on moving. So you and me and my dog, we're all alive. We just moved through time from 315 to 429. We're all alive. But anything that died within that interim is no longer moving through time. So whatever, some mouse outside in the garden just died. And its consciousness is no longer moving through time. It is still back at 325. That's the last time that mouse's consciousness experienced time. It is stuck in that moment, frozen. And every single one of us has these peripheral selves that are to the left and the right of the central core timeline. That is the frozen moments of all of the bad decisions that you could have made. And some of those bad decisions are about like eating bad food. Sometimes it's about standing in front of a bullet. Sometimes it's about believing in non-optimum worldviews, the things that make you die. And sometimes the non-optimum worldviews are also including self-stories about disempowerment, because sometimes people do not know that they can change or evolve or navigate in a better direction. And that itself is a death-promoting thought, the thoughts of disempowerment, which are kind of like, it would be articulated as like, oh, well, nothing I can do about it. Or the philosophy and the belief system known as determinism. Determinism says, well, like God's in charge. God wrote everything. God's the great scriptwriter, and I'm just the actress walking through my pages, and I do nothing, and I know nothing. And I'm just some big stupid idiot. Someone else wrote all of this, and I make no choices and have no free will. And that itself is a death-promoting worldview. So I really would encourage everyone, if you're exploring that worldview, maybe consider expanding and evolving, because I do not promote determinism at all. I also do not promote genetic determinism, which is what happened when DNA was first discovered and popularized in the 1940s and 1950s. Humans looked at it very mechanistically. They're like, well, if you've got this disease, whatever, if it's cancer, if you've got that written in your DNA, it's going to happen. Sorry, kid, nothing you can do about it. But the truth is, there is a lot you can do about it. And that's why I bring up the work of Bruce Lipton. It's never an endorsement of the man. And I wrote these notes like 10 years ago. He was more in vogue then. And I know that he's been a part of Oprah's, Deepak Chopra's, different things that are maybe a little bit questionable. But still, I think that Bruce Lipton has done good work at helping people to get to levels of empowerment and building a bridge between the very rationalistic, materialistic, scientific worldview and this more expansive worldview that I offer to people, that basically says that by making different choices and looking at the world in a different way, your body responds differently. You do not necessarily have to develop or experience the same types of diseases that you would otherwise, and that you have a great deal of choice or influence over the expression of disease potentials in your body. And that is definitely true. So just because there is a potential for cancer in the body does not mean it will be expressed. This is really, really different than how most modern medical science treats people, where they're like, well, we'd like to take a blood test for you, and we will see if you have these genetic markers for blah, blah, blah disease. If you have blah, blah, blah disease, you might want to preemptively amputate some body parts because they're going to get cancer. And it's like, you don't have to do that. That is actually really not a good thing to do, because genetic twins do not develop identical diseases. Even though they might both have markers for cancer, they might not both get cancer. Maybe one gets it, maybe the other one doesn't. And why doesn't the other one get it? Because of worldview and lifestyle choices.
So please know that I am not a proponent of genetic determinism. The things that are in your DNA are potentials, and then their expression is very much something that is within your um, levels of influence, if not complete control. So again, some things are really not within your control. I think mostly how tall your body is, how, the size of your skeletal bones and things like that. Like those things are like, rather set in stone. You're not going to change that much, or like the color of your eyes, things like that. But we're not talking about things that are merely cosmetic. So please don't think about flying rainbow lasagna as a way to be able to have like purple eyes or whatever. You want to be 12 feet tall or something like that. Like it's not about becoming a distorted mutant. Flying rainbow lasagna and the way that I embody it in my body is about achieving ultimate levels of health and vitality and empowerment, writing the best story that I can with the genetic potentials of my body. And that's essential because each of you has a unique body. So I would like for you to consider flying rainbow lasagna to be a tool to be able to access and augment and amplify the very best aspects of what you carry in your own DNA. And then if you carry any markers for disease or potentials for non-optimum or non-life-giving formations in your body, that you can turn down the volume on that. So whatever, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, any of these things that people get in old age, turn down the volume on those. You don't have to experience that. And that is also a huge message to bring to you, because very many people look at their previous generations as an inevitability template. Like if grandmother got gray hair at age 35, then you think you're going to get prematurely gray hair too, but that doesn't have to happen for you. That might have happened for her because of her belief system and also her diet and also this and that and everything. It doesn't have to be true for you. So it's a huge freedom to be an individual in your family. And even if the rest of your family is overweight, it doesn't mean you have to be overweight. Even if they got diabetes, you don't have to get that. If they got cancer, you don't have to get that. You can be a completely unique individual. But now we get back to what I originally shared with you, which is the sense that you are an individual, but we do influence one another. And so it's essential to be able to maintain very strong boundaries. If you're around people that are expressing disease or non-optimum health, maintain your boundaries. And remember that they are literally creating their bodies out of their belief systems, and that you are creating your body out of a different belief system and a different behavioral approach, doing different things and thinking and believing and feeling different things. And that's why you are creating different life experiences for yourself. So there's so much more that I want to be able to say. And also we are heading into, I think, the home stretch of this particular class. And I also have a sense, I think maybe you guys might be at maximum absorbency in terms of your brain sponges. I don't know how much more I can give to you today. Lesson 2 is a big lesson, so we might do more next week. Let me get to some of these questions. First of all, Elmer is here. Thank you for being here, and says, what's the difference of the philosophy of merging duality taught by Freemasonry versus how FRL resolves duality? I am not sure about how Freemasonry talks about merging duality. So I have to say my answer in that way. But I think that I can kind of intuit what it is, because there is this, it's kind of like the negative inverse, like the shadow work that is flawed, or these non-ideal ways of looking at duality. I think that Freemasonry is very flawed in that it talks about self-deification. Instead of worshiping an external God, it kind of makes you think that your own ego is your God. And I think that Freemasonry also kind of tells you that good versus evil is in irrelevancy, and that everything is just kind of all the same, and it's all kind of equitable. So it's kind of like saying evil schmeevil, there's no real difference, just eat it, kid. But there's a big difference between chocolate and vanilla. There is actually a giant difference between these two things. There are qualitative differences, and there are differences in the sense of whether something is life promoting and life sustaining, or whether it brings you to the membrane of death. That's it. You are a compass. Some things bring you towards your true north destination, and some things bring you off of your destination, and that's it. This is not even a moralistic or an ethical consideration of good versus evil, but there are qualitative differences between chocolate and vanilla. So the problem with Freemasonry, or let's say the type of magic that was taught by Aleister Crowley, he was a very unhealthy, unwholesome influence. And he taught erroneously, he said, do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. And it's not true. Actually, the quote is, do what thou wilt, harming none. And that is the whole of the law. So this is a perfect example, like gave a very limited and selective edited version of cosmic truth, popularized it, and then people used that limited and flawed and highly erroneous mental system to be able to justify horrific crimes and things that should never be justifiable. So there's huge qualitative difference between good and evil, and the two are not equitable. Resolving duality is not to say that good and evil are the same thing. In my sculpture, even though this is singularity and this is singularity, the singularity has very different qualities in these two positions. Because the singularity is the place where everything is happening, right? So there's stuff there that is totally energized, moving at fast light speed, superheated, super intelligent, super sentient, super organized. And then in the exact same place, overlapping on top of that, is stuff that is totally not moving, stuck, non-existing, not only not intelligent, but very, very dumb, having zero intelligence, zero sentience, zero self-awareness. Sorry, we have flies all over the place here. Zero self-awareness, zero movement through time, cold, dead, frozen. That's singularity. It is what seems to be a conflict. On the one hand, superheated and very fast, but then also super cold and super dense and going nowhere. Moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, like top speed, but also frozen, doing nothing. And these things overlap in the same place because there is only one place. And that's a difficult concept for the rational intellect. But the things are different. Existence is not the same as non-existence, and good is not the same as evil. When I talk about good and evil, I am mostly moving beyond the moralistic descriptions and ethical paradigms that humans talk about in most levels of philosophy. Mostly humans talk about, like, with religion and philosophy, is an action a good thing? Like, is giving someone a bouquet of flowers a good thing? Is punching someone in the face a good thing? Or is that a bad thing? And the answer is that you can come up with all of these philosophical things to describe how you should act, and behavioral control systems, which is what religions are, that say, always do this, never do this. This is the 10 Commandments. Always, here's a short list of always and nevers, just to guide you so that you are, correctly living your life, right? But the truth is that for each person, your DNA is completely unique. Your trajectory through time is completely unique. Your decisions must be completely unique. So in some circumstances and in some lives, giving someone flowers will help to keep you in alignment with this perfect path of least likelihood of being an ascended master. But in some circumstances, giving someone a bouquet of flowers will bring you to the membrane of death. It's not always the same. And same thing with punching someone in the nose. You'd be like, that's definitely evil, right? Not always. Sometimes punching someone in the nose is exactly the thing you need to do to be an ascended master. Sometimes it is the wrong thing to do and it brings you to death. This is why I also talk about food and moving away from what people call orthorexia, which is like very rigid control systems around food. Like saying, I always eat this, I never eat this. When you are awakening your light body and you start to be really connected to time and to being fully invested in the moment, you're going to make your choices based on glow, not based upon a sense of your diet and intellectual requirements of what you think your body needs. So I shop by glow. When I go out for my walk, my dog, and walk past the small farm to table, little shop that is there, and I go inside and everything they have there is good, but I look around and something will jump out at me that would be like, that's the food that's glowing, I have to get that. So then it's like whatever, this beautiful freshly pressed juice that they've got, or maybe these beautiful frozen chicken cutlets, whatever it is, it jumps out at me and I'm like, that's the food for me, that's what I need to eat. And they're not all the same, like if you have 12 avocados all lined up, they're not all the same. Like two of them are for you, they are going to glow, the rest are for someone else. You have to start to be super selective, because some things will bring you towards, I'm clearly hungry, towards the path of least likelihood and away from death. So philosophy and Freemasonic stuff. Philosophy, I think, is trying to help people. I think Freemasonic stuff is 100% behavioral control crapola that is not healthy and is really used to justify the unjustifiable and to control people's lives, much like many religions. And that it's not a positive thing to look at. But when you move beyond duality by doing the flying rainbow lasagna, what you're really doing is solving duality in your own body. And this is the key thing. And we'll talk about this a lot because I've got lesson 18, which is all about why you have to lasagna. Like you've got an amalgamation of good and evil in your DNA, different proportions. And please don't hate yourself. Be in total compassion for yourself, because you're a good person and you're an innocent. You're in this world where humans have been genetically modified and changed and diminished. And so for some people, it is a struggle to align with and honor the good parts of their own nature and not to allow the evil parts that are implanted inside of them to be the louder voices in their behavior. And the evil parts, I mean, most of you guys are wonderful people, so I don't really have to say this, but in our world, like sometimes the evil that's in people is psychopathology that could be like, violence and insanity and things that really hurt other people. Things that you might relate to more are things that are like self-destruction, like addiction, things like that. And that those are, it's not your true basic nature. And you might struggle against them because you're like, I know I shouldn't take this substance. I know it's not good for me. It's not who I really am. But why do I want to do it? Why does it feel like it's something that's a part of me? It's because you need to turn down the volume on those genetic quotients. Those genetic quotients literally are coming from something that is not even really you, that is interacting with your genetic antenna and is distorting your behavior to make you do things that you would never really do. And up until this point, we were very far along on the ascension journey, but a lot of what we've been doing over the past 20 years has been behaviorally demonstrating in the world who you are and who you're not. So, if something comes along and there's an opportunity, like no one's looking, and it's like, you could steal that and you could demonstrate, like, if that's your true basic nature, steal it. No one's watching, you're not going to get arrested, but it's part of how you demonstrate yourself in the world. Or you're not going to steal that thing because it's just not who you are. And these are very, very clear self-constructive moments. We construct ourselves with these choices. We're not merely navigating this time vortex where you're going, like a recipe, either towards or away from divinity, but we also are constructing ourselves. What type of person are you? Are you the type of person, like, whatever, if you saw a wallet or a bracelet on the ground, like, would you take it or would you not take it? And that is part of constructing yourself through behavior. Because if you are wanting to be a good person, be like, wow, like, I'm going to bring that to the lost and found. I'm not just going to take that for myself. And if you're not becoming a good person, you'd be like, I'm going to serve myself, yoink, and take it. And then, not care about the other person who lost it. Like, these are critical moments that define who you are. And your whole entire life is indelible. That's another important thing. If people knew how indelible their lives in each moment is or are, like, you'd all act really differently. I want to joke, like, you'd all dress very differently. Well, it's kind of like if you're going to go out and someone's going to see you, like, you will put on something nicer than if you think no one is looking. Whenever it's laundry day and I go to the store, and then I always meet everyone, you know what I mean? Like wearing like my worst outfit with things that don't really fit, and don't really look good on me.
If you knew that everything was indelible and it was going to be your outfit for forever, you would make very, very selective choices about what you did because you literally wear your, what would you call it, your activities or your choices on your body. So, how you respond to these different ethical questions, like do you take the wallet? Do you leave it behind? Do you bring it to a lost and found? It's written on you indelibly for your whole entire life. And that is a big thing. And that is also as big as the type of food that you choose to eat or whether you choose to stand in front of a moving bullet in terms of longevity and self-construction. And definitely it is a zero-sum game when you're like, well, no one's looking. I'm gonna serve myself. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take lots of stuff, and I don't care. You end up finding out that it's the worst choice because it does not bring you towards abundance and it does not bring you towards connecting with your community and it does not bring you towards greater levels of trust and celebration in your community. It is corrosive and destructive to do those things. But sometimes you don't know it and then you think that it's okay. So all that Freemasonic stuff, it's pretty much an elaborate way for people to self-destruct because they are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but they kind of tell themselves a story about how it's okay. But all of that is really, really different than the type of non-duality that I'm talking about, where you really recognize this is big. Some of us are on a journey of moving towards energy and we're evolving and we're becoming ourselves as ascended masters. And some people here are not. Like the people that are in this beautiful class, you're on the journey of becoming ascended masters. And I'm so happy to connect with you. And I'm so happy to like teach and share and make artwork and send out music. But there are some people that are not on that journey. And I am so philosophical about this. I'm like, that's okay. This is not for them. And that's why I don't expect to have whatever 3 million people in this class. I'm very, very happy to have whatever 300 people in this class. That's a pretty amazing statistic because there aren't that many super athletes in the world. There's a lot of couch dwellers and, you know, potato chip eaters, like lazy people that aren't really doing the spiritual work. Not everybody's doing the work. And so I'm okay with that. Not everybody is doing it, but some people are doing it. Some people are de-evolving. Some people are moving forward and self-constructing and evolving, and some people are de-evolving and they will move to entropy. And you have to kind of allow and accept for that. And this is really different than the sense of saviorship and redemption, where you kind of think like, maybe they can be saved. Can we fix them up? Can we shine them up? Like get the tarnish off of this person, fix them up, fix the threadbare areas, and then they'll be just perfectly great. And that is actually the antithesis of real cosmic love. When you are in love with the world, you are really in a state of acceptance and you're able to accept that some consciousnesses are moving towards entropy and they are not eternal and they will not be at light speed. And you have to kind of allow that. And so, you know, when you look in your community, you might look at certain people that are like in profound levels of self-destruction, like whatever, crackheads on the street. And you think like, well, like, could we shine them up? Could we get rid of the tarnish, get rid of the threadbare, you know, cracked out parts? And then just kind of give them a good life or whatever. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is like they are de-evolving into entropy. And also sometimes when you look at world leaders who are just like profoundly corrupt, like whatever, Zelensky, who's on a train taking cocaine and planning a war and doing all sorts of bad stuff. I'm like, there's pretty much no hope for that guy. Like, I don't think that you can shine him up and try to make him into a good person and teach him better ethics or whatever, redemption and saviorship and things like that. I'm like, no, I think that guy is like going to entropy and he's not a good person. And I feel comfortable saying that about him. Like, I don't always talk about people and name names. He's a public figure and I think he's a very bad person and it's not going in a good direction. Pedro, thank you for being here, says, if we could move in time, and let me switch closer. Would we be able to interact or just be a spectator? If we could interact, do we create a new timeline or change the timeline you were in? Okay, so this goes to path of light stuff. If you can move in time, like, so I have a timeline that you can imagine stretches all the way out behind me. Can someone else access my timeline? And the answer is no, it's my timeline. And you could only access my timeline if I ate you.
Like if you are part of my body, then you can access that timeline. So if you can move in time, you can move within time in the sense of within your own life, but you can't move in time and be like in somebody else's past or in a squirrel's past or in a tree's past. You can't do that. That timeline is customized or bespoke only to that organism. So if you want to know about changing time and time restructuring, when people talk about timelines and time travel, you are really causing a branching of time. You are not actually going into the past. So this applies to every thought experiment when people talk about like, well, can we go back in time and kill Hitler, right? Anything like that. You would not actually be going back in time and then creating a loop. You would actually be creating a new timeline that is a changed and upgraded timeline. And that's what I mean when I talk about like the potentials of the fifth dimension are one layer of a lasagna. And here's another noodle, another set of potentials, and another set of potentials, and another set of potentials. You're constantly changing and upgrading your term paper on your word processor. And so if you do any kind of stuff with the past, it does change the future, but it changes the future on a new upgraded timeline. That is like the new version of your term paper. And this actually is happening on a cosmic level with ourselves out of the sun all the time. It's a good question. Kim Rose, thank you for being here. Says, I often hear the fourth dimension conflated with the astral realm. Is there any relationship? So this is also very, very distressing to me. Like I'm sweating. I'm like, no, I'm shrinking. This is not okay. No, okay, just put my back up. So no, the fourth dimension is a timeline, but it is not synonymous with the astral realm or with the world between worlds, which we know as hell or the dreamscape or the place where you go to when you take a bunch of drugs. That is not the same. So words do matter. The fourth dimension is a place of timelines, but it is not the same as an imagined reality of either afterlife, consciousness residues or echoes, or a dream world or a realm of pure mental escapism. And the astral realm is genuinely a realm of pure thought forms and mental escapism, but it is not necessarily a realm of time. The astral realm is genuinely the lint trap of the dryer of the world, like the lint trap in your dryer. It is a place where crazy, fragmented, insane, batshit stuff gets stuck because it is not supposed to go forward. All right. It is because there are sometimes fragmented echoes, unhealthy things that have been separated from their true nature, and they are lost and they are in limbo. It is kind of like afterlife stuff, but sometimes it's psychedelic stuff. It's a place where stuff gets stuck. And the thought forms that are there are mostly human created. That you don't have an astral realm of like cat's thoughts. Because you know why? Because cats are not screwed up. Like humans got very genetically modified and screwed up. It got this implanted solar plexus thing that makes them think a bunch of screwed up thoughts, and then created this whole realm of screwed upness that is known as the astral realm. But like there is not a dog's astral realm or a cat's astral realm. It's like whatever, full of fire hydrants or full of birds that they can chase. Like they are in tune with the cosmic architecture and they are in the love state so that they're not making these fragments and echoes. So we should use much better language because the fourth dimension and higher are time dimensions. The astral realm is a cognitive or intellectual or dream space that is for fragments of unresolved human mishigas. And that's a word that means craziness or baggage. And Kim Rose also asks, what's your understanding about the eighth sphere as Steiner put forward? So same thing. I am really not an expert on Steiner. I've learned a little bit from the videos of Gigi Young, who I think is also like a very articulate teacher and has some worthy things to delve into. But I'm not familiar and comfortable with his Steiner's teachings at all enough to be able to talk about it. But I think that the eighth sphere is similar to the astral realm, is similar to the lint trap of the cosmos. And it mostly is a nightmarish place, that it's full of like bad stuff, dirty, gross stuff. Because you know what, like if you put some whatever gross thing in your pocket and then you put that through the dryer and then that gets stuck in the lint trap, like a lot of gross, disgusting stuff gets stuck in the lint trap. And we definitely do not want to have it come into our world. We want to have very, very strong boundaries against that stuff coming into the world. Tom Flynn, thank you for being here, says, you mentioned before the concept of going through portals at the supermarket. Yeah. Could you put this into context of jumping into an optimal, improbable timeline from doing FRL earlier that day or before? Can you expand on timeline leak and the need to process trauma effectively and quickly, whereby time leak would be your perceptions of the other probable non-optimal timelines where you experience a negative time event? My question here is, do you perceive these subtle portals in the supermarket as dramatic timeline shifts towards optimal or non-optimal timelines? For example, wow, something just happened there, but I'm exactly where I need to be in time right now. Wow, that is long, and I'm just trying to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of your question. So the first part over here is, can I put the portals of the supermarket into the context of jumping into an optimal, improbable timeline from doing FRL earlier that day? First, let's think about an example of optimum, improbable FRL. Well, okay. FRL is an embodiment experience. And so let's say I do my dance earlier in the morning, and then I know that I am not only changing time currents, but even paving new roads in time. And then I'm going to go out and explore my creation. So some of the things that I've done is shifted previous patterns, where I might be like, I'm already familiar with this supermarket, but when I go into the supermarket after, having done this, I've shifted something about what was already there, it was already established. But then also Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the establishment sometimes of completely new things, where you might see something that wasn't there before. And that could be either like a new product that you never saw before, or a new person is working there, or something that was not previously established and was completely self-created. And you can kind of notice it. And sometimes it's beyond even sometimes there is no integument that kind of ties it together. Sometimes things just appear. Like that also is a very powerful thing. Like sometimes there is no cognitive rational explanation for how something got there. It is just there. Like I would walk through my town and I would be like, that's funny. Like I never saw that house was there before, or I didn't think that house had a second story. The answer is it didn't have a second story, or it wasn't there. And that literally through Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you have transformed the fabric of space-time into making something be there. And I think that I'm kind of comprehending what you're talking about with timeline leak. So before you are a Flying Rainbow Lasagna dancer, people might feel very out of control in their lives. Like bad things happen. You might feel not in control to prevent those bad things from happening, and not in control as to how to respond to those bad things. Trauma is like getting like a stain of ketchup on your dress, and then also like you don't have detergent or stain remover to be able to do something about it. But Flying Rainbow Lasagna is actually like the ultimate stain remover. It is the ultimate in trauma processing to make it possible for people to fix mistakes by sending non-optimum aspects of time or of your life to entropy. And the trauma is like the residue of cruelty or something bad that you didn't want to happen, but you can send not only that emotional energy to a restful state, but any person who is associated with it, or any consciousness or characteristic, to the restful state, so that you won't experience it again.
what if the ketchup got on you because someone else got it on you? Maybe they squashed it onto you and you were like, that was very not okay. And then you don't know what to do. And like, if you don't find your lasagna, you're like, that's it. Like the dress is ruined. My life is ruined. But I'm like, your dress isn't ruined and your life isn't ruined. Clearly, you can take the dress and you can use stain remover to get the physical stuff off of it. But also, what about the characteristics of a person who is a violator, who wants to squeeze ketchup all over you and make you look bad? You can do something about those violations, about the tendency to violate, and about the person who is a violator. So their tendency to violate might need to go to entropy, or themselves as an organism might need to go to entropy, meaning that they no longer exist in reality. And I would say before you start sending entire organisms to entropy, work on characteristics, because that's definitely expert level stuff to be like, all right, like this person or whatever group of people over here are 100% time aberrations that should not be in existence. I'm going to send them to entropy. That's a lot. I respect each one of you, but I would just say, like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Begin with smaller projects, and smaller projects are sending their characteristics to entropy. So let's say some world leader who's not a good person or something like that, sending their entire body to entropy is a big deal. But sending their characteristics to entropy, I think, is a more manageable solution for you right now at this moment. That's like saying, instead of burning the book, you're going to rearrange the pages of their book, or rewrite their book, or rewrite the characteristics within their book so that they are not such a big giant a-hole that they would do bad things to you or do bad things to others. So timeline leak, processing trauma effectively, let's talk about, like, okay, so I think I'm still trying to get to the question, but I think I'm perceiving it. It goes something like this: like, sometimes you think you're in the wrong place and that bad things are happening to you, but then you think, even though bad stuff happened, I actually was in the right place and this stuff needed to happen to me. I think I can kind of speak to it like that. Each one of us is actually supposed to live an optimized existence. We're not supposed to have trauma or bad stuff happen to us at all. Trauma and the bad things that happen are definitely peripheral adventures, not the central core timeline of what we should be experiencing. If we do experience something that is non-optimal, don't blame yourself. Be like, that's it. Flying River lasagna is bogus. I'm dumping all of this and I'm sitting on the couch and eating potato chips. It's like, no. When you are changing reality, these are incremental shifts. So I've been here for 24 years doing Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and I've been able to witness the world improving, but it's still not a perfect, pristine system. It's not because I'm not good at what I do or what I do is ineffective. It's because it's a big thing that we're working on. It's a big change that needs to happen. So in order to, how do you approach this? What do you do? To make small, meaningful, incremental changes. And if you encounter something that is non-optimal, like after you do your Flying Your Lasagna dance, then you go out, something really screwed up happens to you on that day. You can't be like, oh no, this is a good example. Actually, in my own apartment building, I was literally out in the garden doing my Flying Your Lasagna dance, and one of my neighbors came out and was like, call 911, there's a fire, I'm not okay. And so of course I did, and they were having a small kitchen fire, and it all got fixed up. They were okay. No one got hurt, and the place did not burn down. But I was really wondering about that. I was like, did I dance that into being, or did I fix things? Like, did I create a non-optimum timeline where somebody had an accident, or did I create an optimum timeline where they had an accident and I was able to respond and call the fire department in enough time? And that is actually how I tend to interpret this. Not that I screwed up somehow and I did the wrong move and I danced the wrong thing and then my neighbor had a house fire, but more the sense that they had a house fire through being inattentive. And I think that they've got a little baby that they're, like busy taking care of, and that they weren't watching things on the stove. And that I improved the timeline by being there in the right place at the right time to be able to call the fire brigade and make sure that the fire got put out effectively. But I don't have the math on that. And also, we sometimes still experience interference by what I would call dark magicians, self-serving time distortion agents go around trying to sling mud at other people and do bad stuff and send out curses and bad spells. And so we're still trying to get it to be a pristine system where you really can sense, like, imagine when you're painting on your painting of your masterpiece of reality, and you paint stuff, and then you stand back to look at it, but someone else comes along with spray paint and they spray a bunch of stuff on it. It's like, that is graffiti. That is not my thing. I think that the fire was graffiti. I think it was actually not my thing that I was bringing into existence with paint, with my painting. So I had to get paint remover and try to remove that from existence. And I think that we actually did a pretty good job of it. So when you experience something that is not optimum, not life affirming, not good, get the paint remover. And the paint remover pretty much brings your emotional state and your physicality presence back into alignment with your optimum timeline. At the end of the day, after we had the fire here, fire brigade went home, everybody went back inside, made our dinners, our life went on as normal. Exactly the same way that we would have been like, here we went like, here's a fire, fire's not okay, back onto the central timeline, right where we belonged. And we have to look at it that way as the planet who is ascending, because in 2020, we went way off. The entire example of the worldwide health crisis of 2020 brought us way off of our path. And then we've been trying to get back onto our ascension pathway. We will get back onto there, and you will find that you are back in the correct footprint or posture that you would have been in if our lives hadn't all been so disrupted over the past 5 years. We're all going to recoup our losses, get our momentum back, and get back to where we were, which was this moment of remembering, like, oh wait, like, I'm a divine being and I can make cool things happen, and I don't have to live in a hellhole, and things can get a lot better. So I hope I answered your question. I hope I did. Oh, okay, wait. And now Tom has a different question. It says this question is unrelated to the above. You mentioned that FRL would protect the snoopy, nosy FRL neighbors due to the fact that observing FRL sends them to entropy. Okay, good. How would nosy McSnooperson perceive a dancer that doesn't encrypt their DNA and that does encrypt their DNA? Okay, good. So he asks, essentially, why do we need to encrypt our DNA if FRL has the built-in safety mechanism of sending to entropy nosy FRL interfering neighbors? Are they adding unintended paint strokes to your masterpiece when your DNA is not encrypted and protected with Merkaba, similar to how a page break protects against this interference? Really, really good specifics. Thank you for being such an attentive FRL student. Encryption has everything to do with making sure that someone else doesn't influence your body, influence your DNA, or influence your expression without your explicit consent. So when your clay is still soft and hasn't gone into the kiln yet, like your clay is still the clay of reality is still malleable, encryption has everything to do with making sure that someone else isn't going to come along and smush it. So imagine, like, you're working on a potter's wheel, you're making this beautiful, elaborate thing, you've got it all just right, and then you're done. And then you just leave it there. And then someone else is like, oh, this is a nice, stupid thing, I think I'll smash it. Like, you have to encrypt so that they don't even have access to your creation to be able to twist, distort, smash it, or make it less than what you had intended. So if you do not encrypt your DNA, someone else might come along and try to hijack or influence your creation. And that's just like saying, if you do not lock your vehicle, don't lock your car, and you leave your keys in the ignition, someone else might hijack your car and drive around town and smash into things, do a lot of bad stuff. Self-responsibility says you must encrypt your DNA so that someone else can't just misappropriate and hijack your creation. But when you're doing your flying rainbow lasagna and you're, encrypted, someone is still looking at you, like you're driving your car around town. They're still seeing you drive your car around town, and they're being influenced by your trajectory through time. And your influence on them is always going to, if their destination is entropy, make them go to entropy faster. If they are de-evolving and they look at or perceive you, they're going to go downhill faster. They're going to de-evolve even faster
than they would have otherwise. So anything that's a truly evil thing, it should run away from lasagna because it would be like, like I don't want to learn about lasagna because that's going to make me go to entropy and then I won't be able to be here wreaking havoc in the world and causing all sorts of evil and nonsense. I'd better run away from lasagna. If something that's totally evil were to come up to me and be like, watch me while I'm doing my lasagna or talk to me or whatever, all it would get from me is the truth of its own non-existence, and then it would go into a even more faster resolution of its own non-existent state. Let's talk about page breaks. So encryption is basically like saying you can't get into my bank account. Page breaks are making sure that if any aspect of your creativity is compromised, it doesn't bleed through the whole entire thing. So it's like a page break is an extra fail safe to make sure, because like I've been here dancing for 24 years. If I have one bad day while I'm doing lasagna, I don't want that to infect every single dance that I've done over 24 years. So what you do is you put, protections over the established layers of your masterpiece, and then you do new stuff. And if someone comes along, like what if I'm in the middle of my dance, and someone comes along and whatever, destabilizes me in some way, and I don't do something right and I don't do the math right, I am not going to screw up 24 years worth of work. I might just screw up one day's worth of work. And then I'll be like, look at that. Someone put spray paint on my painting. I better get the turpentine, get off the spray paint, fix this, fix this, fix this. So everything is fixable, but I protect my creation through the page break. And then page break is also in artistic expression. So some of it is for protection from hijacking or diminishments, but some of it is like in a musical score when you're like the music is going like this, page break, then all of a sudden a new part of the song, da dee 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 dee, it went from being one way to another way. And we have to allow ourselves to have those changes of key or changes of pace in the rhythm of our creation and how we interact with the world. So everything is not always the same in music. Like you have 4/4 time and 4/8 time and key of G, key of A in your body. Sometimes you're feeling happy, sometimes you're feeling sad, sometimes you're feeling frustrated and inflamed. You have to allow for these different feelings to be in your creation, but they don't all mesh together. So when I do page breaks, I'm like, that's that feeling. Boom. And then I'm like, now, new feeling. Boom. And then I keep going, new feeling, boom. And this compartmentalization gives me some artistic freedom because, sometimes you're having a bad day and you're like, I am feeling very mad. Rah, grr. But then you can keep that encapsulated in one little thing, and then you can have the freedom to all of a sudden feel good. You're like, well, I was feeling very grr, but then all of a sudden, now I'm feeling better. Now the song changes, and you have to allow yourself that type of internal freedom because otherwise you become committed to whatever it would be, like some of these more inflamed, less pleasant feeling states. Yeah, so yeah, no, sometimes that happens to me all the time. Like I'm not in a good mood. I do the lasagna, and then I end up in a much, much better mood, and my day completely changes and shifts because I do that. So we have to allow ourselves to change how fast we're moving, our feeling state, our focus, our intentions, our the hopefulness, all of those things. It's a internal freedom. So I hope that I answered the questions effectively. They were very, very good technical questions. Kim Rose says, do behaviors like smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol prevent you from ideal timeline or prevent you from doing FRL effectively? Some yes, some no. It really depends. Tobacco really is not very pro lasagna because it closes down the heart chakra and it also stops absorption of food. And in order to do flying rainbow lasagna, you need to have calories. It's like having money in the bank, and definitely access your unconditional love here. So tobacco is not a very pro lasagna substance. And alcohol in general, I think, is not a very pro lasagna substance to take, although it really depends on people's habits. Like there is a way to drink alcohol to pair it with food as a part of the way that people do it in some places. Like you have wine with food. you have this particular taste with this particular taste, like this is part of being civilized in some places, but that is very, very different than drinking 6 beers every night. So you understand it's not a blanket statement about all alcohol consumption in every circumstance. So tobacco, I don't think there's really any use for it, but people have been finding that the nicotine patches do help some people in fighting against the nanotech. So that is different though than smoking tobacco as a daily habit. And I think alcohol can be used, like I said, like the way that they do it in France and in Italy. It is part of the cuisine and it's done in a very specific way. And it's, the alcohol helps to break down the fats that are in the cheeses that they're eating. Like there's a whole thing of it. But I don't drink alcohol at all. It does not, I will just tell you, like, figure out what works for your own body. My body does not enjoy alcohol at all, and I don't even take tinctures that have the alcohol in it, but I'm also dealing with epilepsy, which makes my brain extremely sensitive to some of these things. But yeah, no, mostly I think of alcohol as like a toxic substance, and nicotine is definitely a toxic substance. Let's talk like a couple. What are some pro lasagna habits and anti-lasagna habits? Because some substances, like pretty much all of the drugs of abuse, are anti-lasagna substances, things that are stimulants and tranquilizers and all those things. Like they put your brain chemistry and body chemistry way out of where it's supposed to be, and that includes things like disco drugs like ecstasy. And I do not think that LSD is a pro lasagna substance, and this is tough, and definitely not DMT. Because some people are like, oh, but DMT, ayahuasca, and I went to a festival and all these different things. And I'm like, you know something? I don't think those things are really helping people to lasagna at all. I don't think that there is a molecular shortcut to being able to do lasagna, and that those drugs are mostly very neurologically corrosive. And they create a lot of neurotransmitter imbalances in the body that make it harder to get into these higher states that are needed for lasagna. So mostly I would say that things that are pro lasagna activities are eating very nutritive, organic food, being in real sunlight, being with the natural circadian rhythm. So like don't stay up all night. Disco dancing on ecstasy, up all night under flashing strobe lights is like totally anti-lasagna activity. That is not how you lasagna. But getting good rest every night, not drinking too much caffeine, and eating plenty of vitamin C and protein, like that is actually lasagna activity. So things that are supportive of your health and things that are supportive of your mental health, but also things that are anti-lasagna are things that are boring, like working at jobs that you're not passionate about, or projects that you're not passionate about, or being in relationships that you're not passionate about, things that are compromises, things that are distressing relationships. Bad neighbors can be anti-lasagna. I've had anti-lasagna neighbors sometimes where I just want to be dancing outside, in the garden or on the balcony, and they're making phone calls that are like, someone is dancing. And it's like, like there can be social judgment and the corrosion of other people's projections upon you can be anti-lasagna. And anti-lasagna can also be self-doubt. Sometimes people are going into their dance and they're starting to be like, I'm a powerful person and I believe in myself. And then self-doubt comes in. It's like, who do you think you are? Like, stop dancing now. Not allowed to move your body. You're not allowed to believe in yourself. You're definitely not allowed to shift reality. Like, stop it now. And so the things that help you to do lasagna are things that are not only about physical self-cultivation, but also about believing in your own abilities, your divine connection, your empowerment, and things that give you license to do this, like self-permission to be empowered and be an artist in your reality. Mary Ellen is saying, thank you. You're very welcome. And thank you for being here. And Kimra says, black holes versus stargates. Let's do it. Black holes versus stargates. Rolling up my non-existent sleeves. She says, from what I understand of Ashayana teachings, is that going through black holes was a bad thing, like a stepping down back rather than ascension event. They are like captured or false stargates. Your thoughts? And Avril says, yes, she spoke of black hole systems and that was not positive. Okay, so I gotta say, I haven't fully delved into Ashayana Dean's work. And I think that there is, of course, as always, like, a kernel of truth or something that is valuable there, but then lots of distortions. And then also maybe her work has escaped its confinement and she is no longer in control of it. And now there are many different groups, study groups, blah blahs that kind of take her original writings and are presenting it in different ways. So I haven't really delved. And so her original message is not perfect and clear. And then also it's been distorted in subsequent years. So it's just because it muddies the waters and gets to be a little bit difficult. So I can't speak to how she describes things. I will tell you, I know that she is erroneous when she talks about these subsequent fallings, kind of like here's a world and then they screw up and then they fall. And then they go along and they screw up and they fall again. And they step down, step down, step down. It's a little bit erroneous because the truth is, like, we are at the bottom. We're on the lowest stairs, lowest step of the stairs in the basement. You're in the basement, people. There is not a sub basement that you can fall into. And this is very important stuff because a lot of the evil people that are in this world that are de-evolving and that are actually going into entropy, they're like, I'm just going to keep on being a sweat hog, keep on screwing up, and then they're going to have to make a sub basement for me and all of my other like screw up friends. And then we'll go in there and it'll be a pocket world and we'll keep on screwing up even more and more and more. And the truth is, like, no, there's no more downstairs. There is no more downstairs. You are as down the stairs as you could possibly be in this reality, which is like, I don't know if that's good news or bad news to you guys, because like it can't get any worse. But in genuine sense, there are no more second chances. Like this is the last second chance and the third, 12th millionth, 10 to the 32nd chance that all these bad, evil guys have got. And if you don't do it in this lifetime, you go to entropy. That's it. So that's on the behavioral level of like anthropomorphic perception of soul. Black holes are not evil. This is why I take a little bit of issue with the personification of them as being a bad place to go into and a bad thing to go through. Black holes are the end result of the evolution of a star's consciousness, and they are actually the end journey of where light goes on its journey. But it is not a bad thing for light to go into a black hole. What happens is that it then goes into a different dimension. So it's not like it goes into a black hole like roaches check in, but they don't check out. That's like an old commercial, and the guy's chomping a cigar, like roaches check in, they don't check out. No, this is not like a trap, soul trap. So that's the flavor. The Ashayana Dean teachings have a flavor that is very much tainted with this fear of soul trap. And no, when you're really looking at things from abstract math, there's nothing wrong with black holes. I mean, the truth is they are the end result of if stars die, and we want to be in a world of immortality. Stars should be immortal, so technically black holes shouldn't even exist because stars shouldn't even die. But we're in this world of mortality right now. That's what I mean. Like you're in the basement. You're in the basement, guys. And even stars are having to deal with the rules or the contextualization of what it is to live in this world of mortality and be in the basement. But it's not an evil thing, and it is often misportrayed, like in science documentaries. They're like, they have a voiceover that's like, the monstrous black hole eats stars, rending the fabric of space-time apart and tearing apart photons. Like, they really lay it on thick. And I'm like, this is very not truthful, and that's not what's going on. There's nothing inherently evil about black holes. In fact, black holes are awesome. You know why you have a galaxy right now? Because there is a big, giant, supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy that literally holds everything together. And it's really smart. And it's not evil at all. It is like the conductor that conducts the conductors. So all of the stars are conductors, making things happen in time. And the black holes are, the black hole at the center of our galaxy, the supermassive black hole, is actually an incredibly intelligent organizational feature that brings in information and organizes all these stars into what we call a galaxy. So it's definitely not a bad thing. So I would say some misportrayal in the work that you're bringing up. Stargates are something different. So, because stargates are talked about as like something that's like a circle, like a portal where you're going to go through it, like Stargate, the TV show. You know what I mean? Like a giant arch, and you're going to go through it and go into a magical fantasy land or something like that. That is different and should be perceived differently than the stars themselves, which are stargates. And also with I'm pointing here to my womb. That is also a stargate, places where life comes in and out. And the stars themselves are entry portals for photonic life, that they are doorways, and the doorways come in and out. So, we're at the end of class for today. I'm going to have to talk about the singularity and the doorways to infinity next week. Okay, so we'll bookmark all of that, but I'll answer in much more fullness next week because I can tell your brains are full and you definitely are all at maximum absorption levels here. But stargates, stars are real stargates. And they are naturally occurring ways that photonic life consciousness information is transmitted around our galaxy, and that includes the benevolent nature of black holes. But stargates, it's kind of like a arch in the desert that you go through to go into another world. Those are like technological bending fabric of the space-time continuum, and not necessarily something good. Like I don't know, like, is it going from the right place to the right place or the right place to the wrong place? Like that it really depends. We'll have to take it on a case by case basis. Okay. All right. But good question. Joyce says, fabulous class, Professor. Love to you, and Shiki too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for the love. Shiki is right over here and she's waiting very patiently, and she will get some good. I don't know if we'll have a reward. It's very hot outside. I don't know if we'll go out yet, but thank you so much for caring about her. And thank you guys for allowing me those times, breaks in the middle of class when I need to be able to take care of her. And thank you, Joyce, for always being such a great student. Mary Ellen says, is the sun going to come towards Earth when we go through sun? What does that look like? Have you been on the other side? Yes, I've been through sun portals, or done how experts do star travel many, many, many times. This is what it is to be a light being. In fact, that is who I am as Aurora. I travel light. That means you do not have any baggage. You do not have emotional baggage. You do not have anything other than the pure essence of yourself. So you do not have to pack. You do not have to roll up your shorts and your socks into perfect tubules to be able to fit into your carry-on luggage. What is on the other side is you, but in a purified form. When people have never done this, they approach the portal of going through the sun like a roller coaster, like getting closer and closer, and you're like holding on, you're like, oh my God, 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 oh my God. And then you do it, and then you're like, there was nothing to be afraid of, because the real essence of you is eternal, and anything that couldn't make it through that portal is a non-eternal, non-essential aspect of self. But I have done this so many times, not to sound like that, not to have so much attitude, like how much I've done this, but I've done it many, many times, and there's never anything to fear. In fact, when you do it, it is very positive, because it is a purification of all that is not the real you, that is being either left behind or burned away or incinerated. Mm-hmm. When our planet goes through this, I don't even know how to characterize it. It's not like the sun comes close to the earth and they kind of swoosh together or anything like that. It is more like beaming through the sun. But if I say that, you're going to think like we're leaving Earth and there's a dead rock. Then we're all going to go through the sun as light beings, and then we're going to come out the other side, and then we're going to be like, well, now where do we live? Because we don't live on a dead rock anymore. But it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like leaving Earth. It is going to be a solar transformation portal. And on the other side, there will be yourself and your planet purified, but you will not leave this planet. So the languaging and the imagery is hard, because so much in the spiritual community is about getting out of here. And I want you to know that getting out of here is a psyop. All the stuff, everything, every single thing. That's like either get on board a spaceship, magical space roller coaster, satanic spaceship at the end of time, heaven,
Any of these things, UFOs, anything that's like get out of here and escapism is a psyop. Why? Because that means like getting out of your body. Getting out of your body is not positive. Oh my God, I gotta say this. There's lots of things that are about forced out of body experiences. People want to do hemisync. They want to do the gateway program. They want to put on headphones and get ejected out of their bodies. And they think that that is freedom. That is the antithesis of freedom. Like, you know, something, guys, being evicted from your home or your apartment does not equal freedom. That is not the same. You know what? Having the stability of your home and choosing to go on a beautiful, all expenses paid vacation is freedom. And then you come back to your home. But having to leave your home is not freedom. So anything where you have to leave your planet or leave your body is not ideal. Death is when you have to leave your body. That's when it's like, you do not get to live in that body container anymore, and you're going to have to figure out a new place to be. And it's really not ideal and not optimum at all. Staying in your body is success. Staying with your planet is success. Even though I'm Aurora and I'm up there bouncing around as a stellar network participant, I'm still connected to this planet. And that is why I'm here now in this body and helping out circumstances that are so fraught and perilous in this time place, because I am connected to this planet and it matters to me. Even though I'm an impulse on the stellar network, this planet matters. I would be very, very sad, upset, and angry if this planet got vaporized or destroyed or otherwise mushed in some way. I need this planet. And it is not an abandonment. When you evolve and are able to go into higher levels of acceleration, you don't abandon your body, you don't abandon your planet. Those are still valuable real estate to you and important to you, even though your level of focus has evolved beyond the physicality and what you used to sense and prioritize. So really, really important to recognize humans have been traumatized a lot and made to feel so uncomfortable in their bodies, uncomfortable and unself-loved in their selves, and uncomfortable on their planet that they think that they need to get out, get away, or run away in some way. All of that is the psyop that I'm trying to say. So you should not be in a world that makes you feel so tortured and so tormented and in a body that feels so physically uncomfortable that you are just like, get me out of here. That is actually a cringefully sad and distressing truth that so many people feel that way. So a lot of the message that I bring here is trying to tell you like, no, like having a body is awesome. Living on a planet is awesome. Being in existence is awesome. And what we need to do is revamp this whole thing so that it is a lot more comfortable for you. And then you do not feel like you need to escape and run away. When you can have cleaning products, don't want to run away from your house. You know something, if you never could take out the trash, you would want to run away from your house because you would be like, I have roaches, rats, maggots. This place is filthy. Get me out of here, right? You don't want to get out of here. You know what you want to do? You want to take out the trash. Imagine how different your planet would be if you didn't have rats and roaches and maggots. If you could take out the trash, who would be trash? You know, like cocaine snorting false leaders who want to make a bunch of dead people in World War III. That would be trash. That would be trash. And people that want to exploit you and create harmful social dynamics and non-fulfilling economies that suppress you and enslave you, like that's trash. And a lot of other things, medical torturers who create substances and procedures that diminish your health and vitality instead of helping you, that's trash. All of those things that you do not enjoy, be able to get them out of here. So your levels of empowerment are directly related to your levels of comfort, are directly related to your levels of whether or not you want to be here. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the ultimate in being able to take out the trash. And that's what entropy is. Entropy is like the place where you send stuff that is trash and it's not supposed to be in the world. These are concepts, people, genetic tendencies, and characteristics that are the equivalent of the rats and the maggots that are here because the place is garbaged up. But no, it's a beautiful world. I'm here to tell you it is a beautiful world. I don't know if you've ever had this experience or whatever, but just like moving into a place and it seems like it's not very good, but you're able to clean it up. Then all of a sudden you're like, no, like the architecture of this place is architecture is great, location is great, weather is great, clean up the trash, and it will be a lot better and much more comfortable for you. So going through the sun is a consciousness event. You accelerate and you go through the sun and you become part of the world of pure light. The truth is, you don't have to go to the sun to make it happen. It happens right here. I told you that Earth has a magnetosphere footprint that connects to the sun. Like the truth is, you're connected to the sun right now. But what you would feel is like, let's do it. Let's do like a little dress rehearsal. Okay, guys, like it's time to go through the sun. Tons of solar energy floods your body. Acceleration, moving beyond physical materialism and your focus on the physical world and moving into the world of pure photonic light consciousness. I'm now pure photonic light consciousness. And I'm like, well, this dress is irrelevant. This, whatever, this light stand over here is irrelevant. This computer is irrelevant. Those things are all irrelevant. But you know what's relevant? Me, I'm alive. This planet is alive. You know who else is alive? My little dog. Everyone who's alive and who you love is who is relevant. And that is who is traveling around with you. And then when you get through the portal and you reinsert into reality, you're not in the same reality that you were in before. And there has been a purge and a clearing of the things that aren't real, eternal, and truthful. And all the parasites get burned off. And then you're like, oh, I'm real. My plant is real. My dog is real. But all of that other troublesome stuff was not even, it's not that it wasn't real. It was not lasting and eternal. So unfortunately, my dress is polyester. It would not be real and eternal. Just telling you. So, but don't be like, get your mind out of gutter. Don't imagine me naked. Michael says, thunderstorm power outage. Thank you for letting me back in. No problem at all. We have been having a lot of disruptions too. So I'm glad you were able to reconnect. Kimber says, wonderful class. Thank you. You're so welcome. An anonymous person says, thanks for everything. Love to you, Cheek. You're very welcome. And Mary Ellen says, but have we done this before? Haven't we done this before? Thanks for explaining because no one really talks about this. Okay. I don't know about whether you have done this before, but I know that I have done this before. And I've done it many times. And it's literally what my life is like at the level of being my Aurora self, my collective, not here in this physicality. I go through solar portals all the time. I mean, that's why I joked about it. Like I do it all the time, girl. But I do. I literally go through portals all the time. Like imagine here in my apartment, like I come in through the front door and then I go out through the front door and then I come back in through the front door. Like I do this all the time. That is totally normal for me. That is what our lives are like when we are pure light. You're on the level of photons bouncing around through different photonic portals, for lack of a better word, emanation stations, and you do it in a very specific pattern, so it's not random. And you do it as part of a larger cognitive thought network that is divinity. And when you're doing it, you know exactly what you're doing, and you're not like feeling scared or random or anything, self-doubt. You're like, yeah, I know exactly where I need to go. I need to go through this portal and then go over there. And also time is experienced very differently at that level. So I'm really at the end of my words, like I can't describe it of what it is like in words. Become a thought in the mind of God. That is what happens. And when you are able to do that, like this is how experts do star travel. And we travel all around doing that in all sorts of different places and having all sorts of different adventures and then have more adventures. And all of the adventures intertwine together into a larger cognitive process that is the divine mind, thinking about what we are experiencing. So that's a big one. Going through a solar portal is not just because of your own personal convenience. Like, hey, yo, I think I'll go through a solar portal today. It is because it is a thought in the divine mind. That is like, today Aurora goes through a solar portal. And I'm like, woohoo, solar portal day, let's go.
So that's it. It would be an entitlement or an inappropriateness to be like, um, in your own mind, your neuron saying to you, like, hey, you better think this thought. You're like, who's in charge here? Like, I'm the thinker and you're my brain. Like, I send things around, like, God is the thinker, the stars are the brain. I'm an impulse in the mind of God, and God thinks me around in various different places. Yeah. And of course, I'm happy to do so, but it's not appropriate to be like, I think I'm just going to randomly go through this solar portal. Like, you don't do that. You have to follow the musical score. And also, in order to go through the solar portal, you have to be perfectly arranged. Like, how can I even say that? You have to be shaped correctly. So, part of the process of self cultivation in each, not physicality, but like in individuation structure, you're learning how to be perfectly shaped so that you can go through the portals. So you have a lot of wisdom and light to accrete and a lot of inner self-organization to attain. When you can attain those levels of organization, then you are ready to go through the portal. Um, you are being given and gifted the opportunity and the time to do that inner self-organization work now before you are asked to go through the portal. Kind of like when you're going to get on a car ride with your mom and your dad and they say, like, everybody take care of yourself, like, use the bathroom, eat, drink, do what you need to do. We're about to get in the car and go somewhere. Like, being given the opportunity to do the perfect construction of the water on a molecular level inside of you, your neurology, your DNA, your thoughts, your brain, your social structures, so that when it's time for you to go through the portal, you're ready. You're like, yep, I'm all set. Let's hop in the car and go. And then hop in the car and you actually go. And then time on the road is time on the road. And then you actually get to where you are supposed to be. And then you have the experience where you're supposed to be. But time is nonlinear. And so you are having many different concurrent experiences like that. Again, I'm having a lot of trouble describing to you what it is like, because it's not like I went through a portal and then I drove on the road and then I got to my destination and then I did stuff and then I went through the portal and I got on the road and I got to my destination. Like, it's not a linear journey like that. It's really an all at once journey that is hard to describe. So the salient things that I can oh, and Marianne is saying, sounds wonderful, would like to feel the divine. It is wonderful. I want you to know, even though the first time you do it, you might be like roller coaster ride, like, oh, I'm very scared. It is exuberant. It is exhilarating. It is so freeing. It is the best thing you can possibly do. It is like all I can say, like, if imagine you're a musician and you've spent your whole life like practicing a particular song, and then it is time to actually play the song. And you don't have stage fright. You're not sweating. You are so ready for it. And you're like, let's play. And then you play your beautiful music and it sounds amazing. And everybody else is also playing their really beautiful, very well considered expert music that they are playing too. You're really joining the cosmic symphony when you do this. So it's a privilege to be able to do it. So of course, all of this is very, very different than the sense of like going through like circle Stargate that is a rock, I'm not Iraq like the country, but you know what I mean, like a round opening in a rock in a desert somewhere, like the movie or the show, and come out the other side of the Stargate and be like, oh, like, look, I'm Alice in Wonderland or whatever. I'm Dorothy and I just got into the Wizard of Oz. Very different than that, because like, all of these fantasies about it, whatever, going through a closet to Narnia. They go through a closet, but on the other side, like, they're still themselves. They didn't change. When you go through these solar portals, you definitely transform and you release everything that is not the eternal sense of you, and you emerge as your truest self. And it's very beautiful and very positive. So it's not arbitrary, it's not self-serving, it's part of the larger cosmic infrastructure, and you emerge totally transformed and renewed as your most truthful, version of self. And then it's not the end of the journey, and you keep on going and keep on doing more cool stuff. Yeah, Mary Ellen says I needed more clarity. So good. I'm glad I was able to give that to you. All right, so let me wrap it up for today, everyone, because I am going to see if it's not too hot. I'm going to get cheeky outside for some good exercise, and everybody needs to like throw your books and pencils in the air and be like, now it's time to play and do fun stuff, because I saturated your brain with a lot of things. We will continue with lesson 2 next week, because I didn't get to talk all about singularity, and it's deep stuff and you got to know more about it. So do your homework and watch the whiteboards. Okay, everyone. And thank you for all of your excellence. Thank you for being such excellent students, for listening so well, for coming up with such excellent questions, and for being so attentive. Really, really appreciate each one of you. Thank you so much.